across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. We're online, we're in-app, we are on YouTube, we're on your radio, we are everywhere. This is Mark Dolan in for Kevin O'Sullivan with a bank holiday special. As Britain's migrant crisis worsens and as public anger bubbles over about the migrant hotels, should Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, cancel his holiday to tackle the problem personally? Another millionaire runs for the hills and leaves the United Kingdom. With 16,000 plus people expected to leave Britain who are net millionaires, the latest celebrity to leave the country is Rio Ferdinand, who's on his way to Dubai. How do we stop the brain drain? Is Dubai now a better place to live than Britain? What a silly question. Truly shocking statistics on migrant crime breaking tonight. New analysis shows that foreign nationals arriving on small boats are responsible for an extraordinary rise in serious crimes, including sexual offences, theft, robbery and arson. The Centre for Migration Control finds foreign national sexual offence convictions up 62% since 2021. But the left will have you believe that this isn't happening. We need to talk about Lucy Letby. Her chilling notes were seen as confessions, but leading therapist Emma Kenny says they may be proof of her innocence. After 25 years studying psychopaths, she claims the courts got it wrong. Could this be the single biggest miscarriage of justice in history? And the crisis within the Beckham family. Britain's second royal family worsens. An embarrassing video released by their runaway son, Brooklyn, who is basically Prince Harry 2.0. Should David and Victoria disinherit their disloyal prodigal eldest son? And we decided to pull out all of the stops tonight. We want to do something very special on Bank Holiday Monday. So it is the booking they were all chasing. It's the interview they all wanted. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, three houses Ange. Two Jags Prescott, remember him? Three houses Ange joins us live on the show at 8. It's the interview they were all chasing. It's the booking they wanted. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, live on the show at 8 o'clock with a twist. And you'll have to find out what that twist is at 8 o'clock. And you are listening to Talk, the home of common sense. It's great to have your company. We're going to have a very busy 3 hours. I hope you've had a good day. Lots of people out there working. If you are working, may I salute you for your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. Well, it used to be an unstoppable powerhouse until Rachel from accounts destroyed it. But look, if you're working and you've got the radio on, it's great to have your company. And if you've got the weekend off or the day off, then why don't you crack open something cold and fizzy and let's spend 3 hours in each other's company. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to have a chuckle. We're going to have a laugh because life's too short. But we're going to start with something that's not remotely funny. Police have been accused of failing to tackle the shoplifting epidemic after almost 800 cases a day went unsolved last year. Now, when I say 800 cases, we don't have 800 examples of shoplifting across this great nation of ours. That is 800 cases where there's evidence and investigations happen and police turn up and they're swabbing and fingerprints and CCTV, and yet they remain unsolved. How hard can it be to catch somebody that has stolen a loaf of Warburton's bread, especially the thick slice one, which is very difficult to conceal under your coat? Now, wait for this. A record 530,000 cases of shoplifting were recorded in England and Wales in the 12 months to March the 31st. The highest level since records began more than 20 years ago. We are regressing as a nation. The concept of being a human being and our story as a species is actually progress, right? We're supposed to improve. Everything's supposed to get better. That was the Charles Darwin idea, wasn't it? Natural selection and, you know, the stronger chimpanzee monkey mates with an attractive chimpanzee monkey, and then you have an even better monkey. It's the same with Mercedes-Benz cars and Apple iPhones, isn't it? The 14 is better than... No, yeah, the 14 is better than the 13. Oh, dear. Sorry, I've had a bit of a Rachel from accounts moment there. The iPhone 15 is better than the 14. That's the idea of evolution. That's the idea of progress. But we, as a society, in this once great country, are regressing. We are going backwards. And the shoplifting epidemic is the very essence of that and the perfect case study. So 500,000 cases recorded in England and Wales. And you know what I'm going to say to that, don't you? 500,000 cases. And the rest. Because shopkeepers do not bother to report most of these crimes because they're busy. They're going to get a perfunctory visit from a police officer, or maybe even just a text message from the cops with their crime reference number. Now, why is shoplifting such a problem? And why are the woke progressives ignoring it so enthusiastically? Well, they have a pathological sympathy for criminals. Right? That is the issue with leftism, is that they view criminals as victims, and therefore they have a devastatingly dangerous pathological sympathy for people that commit crimes. That is the twisted moral logic of woke progressives. These are the same people that think that Britain's history is evil, even though we ended slavery and gave the world the Industrial Revolution, representative democracy, the rule of law, and free speech. Not to mention a few other bits and pieces, including the glazed donut and the tea bag. But look, the bottom line is that we're a great country, but the woke progressives think we're evil. Crime is supposed to be bad, but the woke progressives, whose ideology has permeated our public institutions, it's permeated our media. Talk is your only hope when it comes to common sense. That's why we are the home of common sense. And it has permeated the political class, including the Conservative Party, who are now a bunch of lefties. And it has permeated the police, which is why they don't consider shoplifting to be a serious crime. And neither do the courts. That's the point. You don't need a conviction. There's no point getting a conviction and having Inspector Morse dusting for fingerprints and Columbo pitching up in his brown coat saying one last thing, or Lieutenant Frank Drebin crashing in with the police squad and the naked gun. There's no point at the cops doing their job anyway, because when it goes to court, they walk away free. So shoplifting has been decriminalised. The reason why we have an epidemic of it is very simple. You don't commit crime if you think you're going to get caught. Okay, it's all about the deterrent. That is human nature. It is the nature of a criminal to weigh up the risk of getting caught. That's the only issue that they look at, is a chance of being caught, right? That is their only criterion for crime, is will I get caught? And they know that they're not going to get caught. And if they do, then they will walk free from court itself. So the fear of being caught is absolutely critical to stop shoplifting, which is a fear that the people of Dubai have, which is effectively crime-free. And Singapore, and dare I say it, so shoot me now, Russia. Now, Russia's, run by Vladimir Putin. He's a dreadful specimen of a human being, not a nice man. He's invaded a country, an independent sovereign country. Millions of people have been injured, thousands have died. He's an awful, awful man. But I'm having to look to Russia and to Moscow with envy at the moment, because I can wander into this beautiful studio in the home of common sense, not fearful that I'm going to get my phone snatched out of my hand, that a knife is going to be placed on my neck, or that if I have the temerity to pop into a Tesco Express, a Sainsbury's local, a Co-op, and the other one, that I'm going to go into a supermarket which has Nescafe Gold Blend with a tag on it, which is the sign of a failing country. There are no tags on the Nescafe Gold Blend at the Moscow branch of Tesco Express, Teskov Express, as I believe it's called. And that's the issue. So the fact that we now have to look enviously to Russia, which is basically a horrible, corrupt dictatorship, the fact that we can look enviously to a city like Moscow, which is clean and safe by comparison to our great cities, is crushingly embarrassing, very insulting, and it's enraging. So this crime's been decriminalised. 500,000 people last year, and they couldn't care less. They are laughing at us. They're laughing at the police, they're laughing at the courts, they're laughing at you, they're laughing at me, they're laughing at the innocent shopkeeper who, and I don't know about you, but I love my convenience store. And my convenience store is open 18 hours a day. The hours that they put in, it's a family business. And yet they have to stand idly by whilst people just go into their, steam into their store at 2 a.m, just grabbing whatever they want with impunity. And is the owner of my local convenience store, is he going to step in and risk his life when he's just had another baby? He's a family man, he's got responsibilities. It ain't going to happen. He's got CCTV. The cops aren't interested. They don't want to know. You get your phone stolen, you can tell them where the phone is. You say, officer, my phone is at 27 Acacia Avenue. It's in their living room. They're watching EastEnders. Please go and collect my phone. Do I have to pay more taxes than I currently do? Did you see that stat the other day? People don't make £100,000. The worst amount of money you can make is £100,000. Because if you make £100,000, you keep about 35 quid of that every pound. 35 quid out of every 100 is what you keep, thanks to our extortionate taxes. And yet the streets aren't safe. So the shoplifting is dangerous. Okay, these folks are aggressive when challenged. They may have a weapon. Are you going to take your chances? And why should somebody that works at Sainsbury's or Co-op or a Tesco Express or any of those brands, Aldi, Lidl, why should they, on 12 quid an hour, risk their lives to stop a disgusting thug? Well, I came off air last week, I think it was the Tuesday night, and I popped into one of these stores on my way home to get some of that high-protein yoghurt because my body's a temple and I've got to hit my protein goals. But I couldn't go in because two lads were being dragged out of the supermarket by a security guard and several members of staff. And it was actually a miraculous scene because those folks were very brave. But I chatted with them afterwards and they said that there are 15 to 20 incidents like that every single day. And we're very lucky as citizens that these supermarket staff bother. But at a certain point, they won't. And why should they? This shoplifting epidemic, the one issue with it as well is the messaging is catastrophic. Because it says to these people, it says to society really, you don't have to pay for things. The social contract is over and you don't have to pay for things. It suggests that we're afraid of them, that they've won. And of course, shoplifting is a stepping stone, isn't it? It's a gateway drug to further crime. Of course it is. Because that takes you into that criminal mindset. And they're starting young. 8, 9, 10 years of age. Gangs are sending these kids in to steal bottles of rum and vodka and Nescafe blinking Gold Blend. Why is Nescafe Gold Blend so popular these days? It's got a tag on it. So it sends a message you don't have to pay for this. It demonstrates that criminality is tolerated and it means that crime will only grow. But here's the kicker, and I'm going to talk to Isabel Oakeshott in just a moment, who actually spends some of her time in Dubai. Isn't she lucky? I'd love to go there. I might speak to the boss of Talk and just move to Dubai and do the show from there. On the beach maybe, and not with my pale skin. Good luck. I'd be crisped up like a bacon sandwich. But look, here's the kicker. Shoplifting is unfair. It's unfair on the people that work hard, who are struggling with the cost of living, and they have to go in and they're buying their goods. You know, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for that? Meanwhile, someone else comes in, grabs the wine, grabs the steak, grabs the infamous Nescafe Gold Blend, and walks out of the shop like butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. Again, a bit like the shop workers who step in. At a certain point, the public will also think, why am I paying for this stuff? Why don't I walk out as well? And then you've got a complete breakdown in society. And do you know what they're doing? They are mugging us off, because we all pay the price, you see. It's not a victimless crime. Because with all of this shoplifting, there are insurance claims by the business. So that pushes the cost of insuring a supermarket up. They will pass that cost on to us. So we pay, and we're the mugs because we pay twice. And we're being laughed at, and it's exactly the same as the road. Because, you know, woe betide you for paying your taxes and your car tax and insuring your car and making sure it's got the MOT and checking those tyres that they're not bald and the tread is good and all that stuff, right? You're an idiot for doing that. What you want to do is be an uninsured driver, because then you don't get the parking tickets. When you get flashed, they don't have your address. And when, God forbid, there's an accident, you walk away unscathed because you're uninsured. The messaging is that the criminals are winning, and we, the people who abide by the laws, pay our taxes and participate in the diminishing social contract, are complete and utter fools. They're making mugs of us. I'm personally deeply insulted, and whoever gets in 4 years' time should consider shoplifting, petty crime, antisocial behaviour top of their priority list to tackle lawless Britain. Your reaction, can you tell me anecdotes, your stories of witnessing shoplifting? 0344 499 1000. Let me know what's happened. Let me know how it's made you feel. And let me know what your solution is. I'm delighted to have Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. And Isabel, you spend some of your time in Dubai, where shoplifting is not a problem.
Yeah, that's right. I am based for most of the year, actually, in Dubai. Got back yesterday from a few weeks in lovely UK. And, you know, I've got so much to say on this. And I think you mentioned that you'd love to come out here. Please do, because I would love for you to see for yourself the contrast in standards of behaviour. And I think public perceptions in the UK about why that is are so vastly removed from reality. It's not because you get your hands chopped off if you steal. There's a culture of maintaining certain behavioural standards and respect. And there is a sort of assumption of honest behaviour. And there are a lot of reasons about that which we can go into. I know we've got to jump to a break shortly. But I would just say, as a little observation, one of the first things I noticed when I moved out here was that if you're in a shopping mall, in a big shopping centre, they let you take a trolley from one shop to another. So you can put items in from one store and then trolley around to your next shop. And that would never be allowed in the UK, because there would be an assumption that you'd be up to no good, that you'd be filling your trolley with lots of different things from different shops and trying to get away with it. And here there is just a basic assumption that you are going to be honest and behave properly. And by and large, in fact, I've never known a case of people not doing that.
So this is cultural. This isn't really about resource and, you know, making sure there are enough coppers. This is something that the citizens participate in. This is the social contract in Dubai that we don't have here in the UK anymore.
You know, when you arrive at the international airport here, there are signs up. They're quite discreet, but they're really clear, and they set out the principles of the leadership here and what the deal is, basically. In a nutshell, they set out what's expected of you and what the ambition and vision of the leadership is. And people who are here are only here thanks to the government allowing us to be here. You know, we are here as long as we behave properly. And by and large, it's 80% expat in Dubai. People have come here to work, to better themselves. They come from all over the world, and they do know that if they break the rules, they're going to be kicked out. Contrast with the UK, if you break the rules, basically nothing happens at all if you're an immigrant. I mean, I'm effectively an immigrant, an expat or immigrant, whatever you want to call it. I don't expect to be given anything here. It's a privilege that I'm here and I have to behave properly. And everybody knows that. And there's another thing that you and I are probably going to disagree on, and we might talk about it later, and that is to do with ID cards. There is no such thing as being anonymous here. Everybody has to have an ID card, and I can tell you it makes a huge difference to security, because the safety of knowing if someone comes into your house, you just ask for their ID, you know who they are. If something disappears from your house, you know that all you need to do is contact the authorities, and they'll soon be on the next flight out.
Would you be willing to have compulsory ID cards? 0344 499 1000. Isabel Oakeshott and myself will discuss that next.
London's police force is completely and utterly wrapped up in dealing with that. So it's a great weekend to be a burglar, because there's no police anywhere near South London, for example. You don't have to worry about that. If you want to go anywhere near and rob anybody down sort of in North London, that's going to be fine too, because they're all at Notting Hill. The whole thing is a complete disaster, and they're all terrified of saying this thing is a waste of space. It creates criminality. It encourages people to fight the police, and it should be shut down because, quite frankly, it's not even British.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Trevor has messaged in. Good evening, Mark. Good to see you back on Talk. Sadly, all the brave people were killed in the First and Second World War, so our gene pool is not as good as it should be, has turned us into total wimps. I'm delighted to say that with me for the hour is Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. We're talking about the shocking scale now of shoplifting in the UK, England and Wales. A record 530,000 cases were recorded in both countries in the 12 months to March the 31st. The problem's getting worse. So, Isabel, can you outline why you think ID cards might be the answer?
Well, I'm not sure that they're the answer to shoplifting per se, but I think they're the answer to a lot. And I'm a libertarian fundamentally, and I absolutely hated the massive overreach of the state during COVID.
Yeah.
I really recoiled from all of that intrusion and the kind of mandatory this and mandatory that. I can't tell you how infuriated that made me feel and how viscerally I was opposed to it. However, when it comes to running an efficient and pleasant society in which people, I hate to use this phrase, but kind of play by the rules, behave properly, then having a system by which everybody can be easily identified makes an enormous difference. And before everybody kind of shrieks in horror, we basically already have this. Everybody, pretty much everyone has a passport. And if they don't have a passport, then they've got a national insurance number. A national insurance number is just a basic thing that everybody gets at the age of 16. And so, in a sense, everyone's already got an ID card. It's called their national insurance card. I don't think these days you get an actual card, though you and I are probably old enough to remember getting it. Do you remember the red and blue things?
That was a great rite of passage, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So you've already got an identity as far as the government's concerned. And I don't think you'd have to add much to that national insurance number to make it really usable. And what we have at the moment is a very sorry situation in which we have an unknown number of illegal immigrants in the country who are able to work on the black market, commit crimes and all manner of other awful things with complete impunity. They're able just to melt away into society. They're able to use public services without producing any ID. I'm thinking in particular of the NHS. We all know the scale of abuse of the NHS by health tourists and people who come specifically to use it as a kind of international health service. So I really think the time has come now to make this mandatory. And I know it's controversial. This is not, by the way, a Reform Party position. Nigel Farage is much more wary than I am about going down this route. So just to be clear, I'm just speaking for myself here. It's just my view, having seen how well it works in the UAE, where you have to basically produce your ID card for almost any serious interaction, whether you're getting healthcare, whether you're trying to buy a property, whether you're trying to rent a property, even in fact, and you're going to hate this, Mark, when you get a mobile phone contract. And many people are going to recoil at that, but I can tell you there are huge advantages to living in a safe environment. I have 2 teenage girls here. I never worry about them going in cars with local taxi drivers. I don't worry about them being out late because people just respect the law.
Indeed, but if you look at the debanking scandal, or indeed, as you quite rightly mentioned, the authoritarianism that we saw during COVID, ID cards would have been leveraged in both instances, wouldn't they, by governments that chose to impose their will on us. So, for example, during COVID, you would have had to have shown your ID to get into a nightclub and demonstrate whether you were vaccinated or not. And similarly with the debanking, what happens if you become political and perhaps it's the wrong politics and they can put a little note on your ID card saying this guy's a wrong and don't let him buy a train ticket?
It already happens, with the debanking, that's already a thing. I mean, in terms of don't let them buy a train ticket, that is the Chinese social credit system. And in no shape or form am I saying that that's to be pursued. To the best of my knowledge, no one takes it that far in this part of the Middle East. I don't think that we have to necessarily imagine the most extreme possible example of use of this system, which would be the Chinese social credit system, or probably something they've got in North Korea, to say we can't have it at all. I mean, that's a bit like saying you can't have any other system other than the NHS apart from the American system. It's a bit facile to say we can't have any form of basic identification because it might be used to stop you getting a train ticket, just as it's facile to say we can't change the way the NHS is funded because otherwise we'll be like America. There are middle ways, and I think most of us can probably agree that the current system, whereby it's a sort of free-for-all and illegal immigrants are allowed to just melt away into our society, isn't doing anyone any favours, apart from those who don't wish our country well.
Is there a concern around forgery, Isabel, in relation to ID cards?
Really good question. I think technology has probably come way beyond that. But I mean, that's always the case, isn't it, with any documents? I mean, you know, there are forged passports all over the world, aren't there? And forged other documents. And, you know, either way, technology is brilliant at producing forgery, but it's also these days possible to use biometrics, and those are widely used here. In this part of the Middle East, they're used in many countries. I mean, even in the UK, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we use biometrics for fast-track passport control.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty difficult to forge your retina pattern and the other biometrics that are used.
And do you have to carry an ID card on you at all times in Dubai?
I don't think you do. I actually don't know the rule on that. I do carry mine because it just sort of crops up, you know, weirdly. Sometimes if you just want to go into a building or something, I don't know if it's like go to some particular appointment. Sometimes they ask for it at reception, but I don't think it's a way of trying to monitor or track you as such. It's just a way of making it easier you just swipe the thing and then you're in, rather than having to painstakingly write down all the details that you would in a similar building in the UK. I don't actually know the answer to that, but it's just not really seen as a big deal. It's just part of, you know, it's like carrying a bank card or something. It's not as if someone's going to stop on the street and say, show me your ID. I mean, unless you did something wrong.
I mean, could someone like Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister be trusted with that level of power and that incredibly potent infrastructure of an ID card, particularly if there was another pandemic? Would you not be quaking in your boots?
I mean, perish the thought of this Labour government being in charge of that kind of emergency. I don't trust this government on any front, not on anything. So no, I hate the idea of them being in charge of any system that allows tracking and tracing. But I also hate the status quo in our wonderful, my home, which is the UK. I hate what is happening to our country and the kind of free-for-all that it has become for boys in balaclavas on bikes delivering fast food when everybody knows that those people who are masked up in the middle of summer are working illegally. You know, I would like a system in which the police could confront those people who are wearing masks and clearly working illegally and say, where's your ID?
Most definitely. We've got this from Gary. Hi, Mark. We've been travelling the world since March. We got out of the UK as we had enough. We're yet to find a place that feels as unsafe as Brighton, which was our last port of call in the UK. Woke Brighton, where they just munch on couscous. Who knew? He says we were in Dubai and we weren't spending lots of money, but we were made to feel special. The service is extraordinary. OK, well, more on this in a moment. The calls are stacking up as well. 0344 499 1000. Will you accept ID cards in this country in order to tackle illegal immigration and also to maybe catch those shoplifters, of whom there were 500,000 last year? But next up, should Sir Keir Starmer cancel his holiday to tackle the growing migrant crisis and anger over migrant hotels? That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So here's a question for you. Should Sir Keir Starmer return to the UK, cancel his holiday to tackle the growing migrant crisis and anger over migrant hotels? Isabel Oakeshott, I guess there's never a good time for a politician to be abroad.
No, I mean, I've never sort of begrudged politicians from any party their summer holiday, but it's very obvious that something has got to give on this migrant crisis, and that something is not simply an announcement that Labour is going to speed up the asylum appeals process. I mean, that they think that this may take the heat out of the situation is just absolutely laughable and shows just how out of touch they are.
Yeah.
So I don't think Keir Starmer coming back from holiday would make any difference whatsoever, unless he was willing to stand on Downing Street outside number 10 and declare that every arrival on a small boat across the channel will be incarcerated and deported forthwith. You know, that's the kind of scale of what we need from number 10 at this point. And if he's just going to come back and announce more tinkering around the edges, he might as well stay on his sun lounger for all the difference it's going to make.
On a point of order, I think Starmer's in Scotland, by the way. I need to double check that, but I think he's north of the border.
You can definitely be on a sun lounger in Scotland, although you may get a few midgie bites.
You might, just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, could this crisis engulf his premiership, Isabel?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I really do believe we're heading in that direction now. But we've already seen in the last 24, 48 hours, the beginnings of what I think is the breaking of the dam. We've had David Blunkett, a real Labour grandee, coming out saying and suggesting that something needs to give in terms of ECHR and the other international rules that Sir Keir Starmer is so obsessed by and thinks means we have little to no room for manoeuvre.
Yeah.
That to me was a very, very significant intervention. And we've had another Labour backbencher, I think, has come out and said something very drastic needs to be done. It's quite apparent to me that this can't go on. You know, the absolute tidal wave of illegal immigrants coming across the channel in particular, but there are also plenty coming by other means, cannot be allowed to continue. We're on the verge of civil unrest already. People are behaving very well at these migrant protests. The protests have been effective, at least in the case of the Epping Council one. And I think people have got, you know, their blood is up, and this is only going to build. I don't think that the flow of boats across the channel is going to particularly abate just because we get to winter. That's an old thing. It's now an annual issue. And Starmer's going to have to do something proper, not just tinker.
Most definitely. I mean, the language around this has changed. You mentioned David Blunkett. There are a couple of memes going around saying, is former Labour Home Secretary David Blunkett now far right as well, for suggesting that perhaps we should exit the ECHR. Meanwhile, the Conservatives have changed their rhetoric, haven't they? I'm just looking at their X feed at the moment. It shouldn't be a revolutionary act to fly your own flag in your own country. And then perhaps more powerfully, just 2 hours ago this was posted, I believe, Britain is our home, not a hotel. That famous Overton window has shifted.
I mean, the thing is, you know, great. Thanks, Tories, for finally saying all this stuff. You know, I don't think this is any excuse for Labour, because they had many, many years in which to work out how to address this problem. But it was the Tories that landed us where we are now. And for that, they deserve to be never again be trusted by the British people on the matter of immigration. You know, I can't listen to them seriously, I'm afraid. I do listen seriously a bit to Robert Jenrick, because I think he did resign over this issue when he was in government. He has fought hard on it, but I think Suella Braverman as well. But beyond that, I can't listen to them, you know, ticking off Labour about it. They're the ones that left this country in such a mess.
Do you blame Boris Johnson in particular rather than the Tories as a political grouping? Because I feel Boris went a bit AWOL with the open borders.
Well, Boris, absolutely, famously, I remember when Boris actually suggested an amnesty for illegal immigrants in London when Boris was mayor. So that would have been, I don't know what year that was, but kind of around about, sometime in the early 2010s, probably. Maybe it was before that, maybe 2008. But yes, I mean, he was famously sort of relaxed about what he would have seen as multiculturalism, relaxed attitude to immigration. But you can't put it all on him. The rot set in, I suppose, in the early 2000s with the accession countries. And then under the Tories from 2010, they had an incredibly lax attitude to immigration in general. And they did nothing when those first small boats started coming over, nothing at all. I actually remember when the first boat was spotted, and I remember thinking, crikey, is this going to become a thing? A couple of blokes virtually on a canoe coming over. I remember it was like 2016. And instead of seeing that as a massive red flag, the Tories just kind of shrugged and did nothing about it. And now we are where we are.
We are where we are. Their pinned tweet: if you arrive in Britain illegally, you cannot be allowed to stay. Our policy is simple: deport. Do you think it's conceivable that Starmer will begin deporting people if he becomes politically desperate?
Well, he would say he's already deporting people. I mean, they trot out some figures about how many they're deporting. I mean, by the way, we haven't talked about one in, one out, have we? I mean, it got a bit quiet on that. I thought we were going to be given so-called regular updates from Yvette Cooper, Home Secretary, about how many have gone out in exchange for the numbers that have come in. I think it's fair to say the way it looks at the moment, the one in, one out policy has been the total farce that most of us predicted it would be. Thousands and thousands have come in and perhaps a handful have gone out, and nobody is really pointing to who or where those people are. So we're already deporting a handful of people, but it in no way offsets the number coming in. And we're not deporting the obvious ones to deport, which are the criminals.
Most definitely. Neil has messaged in. Mark, what's going to happen when all of these speeded up backlog claims are basically given the green light to clear them? And that's going to be the strategy. And in fact, the vast majority of people that do enter the country illegally receive asylum in the end. And that's got to stop, hasn't it?
Well, I'm going to be very boring and factual here because I actually got this wrong the other day on Kev's show. I, like you, thought the vast majority were ushered in, and actually the statistics have fallen. It was about 60-something in terms of approvals for asylum claims, and it is now 49%. See how they did that? See how they just magically got that below 50%? Little bit suspect, I can't help thinking. And I don't really trust the figures overall.
Well, I'd heard figures of 90% previously. But the issue is if they're not granted asylum, they don't always leave.
Well, exactly. Because guess what? They are not detained on arrival. So, anyone can melt out of an asylum hotel, out of one of these migrant hotels, or out of a home of multiple occupancy. Just as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, people have been able to melt into those hotels. There's a bloke on, I think it was on TikTok or Twitter, who just kind of blended into one of these hotels. He walked in and had a meal, and nobody really noticed because there's no particular monitoring of comings and goings. I think he was actually arrested for his troubles. I'm not sure he really should have been. It was rather a service to the public interest, I would have thought, to show just how easy it is to blend in with a bunch of random people who are being given free accommodation.
Something that's often said regarding the illegal immigration is how minuscule the figures are. But I don't buy that, because 50,000 people in a year is a lot, Isabel. And in the course of this parliament, that would be 250,000 people, undocumented folk who have entered the country illegally. That's a massive figure.
Do you know, I find that suggestion that these figures are shrug, nothing to see here, let's move on, pretty insulting to everybody's intelligence.
Yeah.
Frankly, one wrong person is 100% too many. We know, because there was this case only a few months ago, that there have been several Iranian nationals that have come in by the small boats who are terror suspects. You know, is that not a big thing? Is that just infinitesimal figures? And by the way, if the kind of figures that we're talking about here, as you say, 50,000, more than 50,000 under Keir Starmer alone, are infinitesimal, what does that say about the wider number of immigrants coming in? You know, I know for sure from the very extensive research I've done on this issue that actually many migrants now, illegal would-be asylum seekers, are being advised by the people smugglers not to come by boat, but to come in the back of lorries or in buses. We're not talking about any of those people. That just suggests that there is a multiple of the numbers that we know about and we're shouting about. None of this is insignificant. None of it is trivial. And it needs to stop from the individual to the greatest number.
Isabel, you've sparked a debate on ID cards. This from an unnamed listener. Oh, Isabel, you normally talk so much sense. As you say, we have national insurance numbers, so why must we have ID cards? It's the short end of the wedge and will go further. Likes of Dubai and Singapore are crime-free because of the punishments, not the ID cards. If Blair wants it, it must be wrong. Michael's not happy about that and that issue as well, and that suggestion of ID cards. Jeremy in Exeter, hi Mark. Isabel Oakeshott is talking Blairite nonsense. Digital ID is designed to surveil and control us, the honest, law-abiding citizen who pay our way. It won't stop illegal immigration or the activities of the immigrants. I shouldn't be just surprised at someone who jumped into bed with Hancock, really, but oh my God, sorry. You know what I've got to do? I've got to actually check these messages before I... before I proceed. I tell you what, we're going to have a right old ding-dong about this with your calls next.
The reality is that this country is built on the backs of those small businesses. Our entire economy is built on it. They fund the public services that everybody uses. And by taxing them to death, as we've seen by this Labour government, whether it be that national insurance increase, that jobs tax, we know what that's costing businesses. You've just heard a horrific example of that bill. The employment rights bill, or whatever Labour want to brand it, that's going to put more red tape on employers and make it even harder to create jobs. The reality of throwing people on the scrap heap, taking them out of work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this from Keith in Poole. Mark, asylum grants that you quote are first decision and ignore appeals. 50% of appeals are successful, so overall it's probably more like 75% accepted. Mick in Bromley. Wow. Am I correct when Isabel Oakeshott said where are the police asking for ID cards of the scooter delivery riders? Where are your ID papers? It's like the Second World War, he says. Give them an inch and they will take a mile. Thank you for that, Mick. Let's take a voice note now from Anna on ID cards. Go for it, Anna.
Mark, I don't know why anyone thinks an ID card will stop an illegal immigrant. They are entering illegally and refusing to state their identity, and they are facilitated by our government. How will me carrying an ID card stop crime? Unbelievably stupid.
And let's hear from Dave on ID cards as well on a voice note.
Good evening, Mark. Reference digital IDs. This is Tony Blair all over again. We don't need them. We don't want them. They will control you at every aspect of your life. And they know everything. And they can just debank you. They can do everything. I've got a driving license and it tells anybody who wants to know about me everything. Digital IDs, no way, Jose.
Dave, thank you for that. Let's go live to Lincolnshire. Mark, you're on Talk. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Listen, Isabel sparked a fantastic and very interesting debate on ID cards. I mean, I do think that if they could tackle illegal immigration, then they would be worth having. But will it work?
No, they wouldn't be worth having, Mark. You're well off the mark, my friend. So is Isabel, I'm afraid, on this. 100% she is. I mean, for a start, she's comparing Saudi Arabia with the UK. You know, Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy state. It's not classed as a democratic state. You say anything against the monarch or Islam or anything like that, you mug somebody, you do any crime over there, the punishment is literally brutal. That's why they have low crime rates. You know, digital IDs, it's a classic symptom, isn't it? Well, a classic fix, isn't it, for a symptom that the state causes. Yeah, the state causes the problem by allowing mass uncontrolled immigration for decades. That's the problem here. So you have all these people in the country. Recent studies show it could be as high as 1.5 to 2 million people in this country illegally, which is why we don't feel like you can move in the streets, why everything feels so cramped. Yeah, because there's that many people here that aren't legal, and they don't even know who half the people are. It would take a heck of an inventory of the country to actually get some grasp of how big the problem is. Digital IDs aren't going to fix that, but what digital IDs will do is give the government obviously a bit more control over what you're doing day to day. You know, show me your papers and all this kind of stuff. But further than that, the biggest issue that I have with it is that once you've got digital ID, you're only a stone's throw away, something that the Labour government would love to do, even the Tories would love to do it, and that's a stone's throw away from a social credit system. Because then, I mean, even if you think about it, Mark, they're even starting to kind of bring that in now. Can you remember all that talk where they run about if you commit some various kinds of crime, you can be banned from the football for life, you can be banned from the pub, you can be banned from using a train. Can you remember that? They were just talking about this the other day. That is essentially a social credit system. Yeah, so they're obviously showing, as far as I'm concerned, they're already showing their desire to bring one in. Well, if you let them give you a digital ID, and this is the problem, they want you to have it. It's the same as the Online Safety Act, Mark. Oh, it's to protect the children. Don't you want to protect the children?
I know.
Only then you find that it's also clamping down on everything else around that.
Absolutely. No, Mark, I'm undecided on this. You see, I want illegal immigration to end, and I suppose the argument for these ID cards is that if you are in the country illegally and you try to do something like apply for, you know, accommodation or something, housing, that you'll immediately get found out as illegal and then you're deported. Is that not an argument?
No, it isn't, because how do you know, a lot of these people that are living illegally are living with criminal landlords that are more than happy to bunk up half a dozen in a room, in a property that they will own, that landlord will own quite legally, but you don't necessarily know who he's putting in that building, do you?
Isabel,
you know, he might have...
well, no, I take your point, Mark. Stay on the line. Isabel, your reaction to these comments?
Well, I think Mark said it himself. He contradicted himself there, where he said we don't know who half the people in the country are. If you have an ID system, you know exactly who everybody is, and that is the point. And it doesn't have to be that extreme. You know, you're talking about this show me your papers thing. I mean, all I can say is it doesn't feel like that. You know, I live in a society that has them, and it doesn't feel like show me your papers. And what I would add to it, and this is actually a rather subtle thing, it actually creates a great deal of trust. What it means is you can have any number of people. Just to give a little domestic example, let's say somebody who's coming to help fix the plumbing or, I don't know, deal with an electrical problem. It's very, you don't worry about letting such a person into your home and going out while they're in your home to do something else, because there is this ID card system. So it's very easy to trace. If anything happens while you're out of your property, then it's very easy to trace who did it, and there are consequences to pay. So actually it leads to much more trust. And that is why in countries with these systems, you know, for example, like Singapore, it's very similar. People quite routinely leave their front doors open. They leave them unlocked because it is just, there's an acceptance that people don't go marauding around taking your stuff.
I mean, Mark, if you look at Uber taxis, they're safer than a regular sort of local taxi firm, aren't they? Because of the technology that shows you who the driver is of that car and what the reg is, and even a photograph of him. Is that not a good test case for this?
No, it isn't, because quite a few drivers for Uber are illegal anyway. Because they just buy a license. They give a cut of whatever they're earning to whoever actually owns that license. You know, Isabel was talking about, you know, I contradicted myself. No, I didn't. How exactly did I contradict myself? Yeah, there could be up to 1.5 million, 2 million illegal people in this country. Doing an inventory of them, you know, that doesn't change. You don't need a digital ID card to do that, because it won't solve that problem anyway. The only way you solve that problem is to invent it, you know, to go around the country and actually find out who is there. And then when you start seeing people who aren't there, then you can do something about that. Having a digital ID card doesn't identify them, because they're going to stay under the radar anyway.
OK, well, listen, Isabel, last word, couple of seconds if you can.
You can't live in total isolation. You know, all of these illegal people will have to interact with branches of the state at some point, use a bank, you know, get a phone out, whatever it may be. So they'd quickly be identified.
Isabel, it's been such a treat to have you on the show again. Really enjoyed the last couple of evenings we've spent together. Isabel Oakeshott is Talk's international editor. Next up, it's the interview they all wanted. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner with a twist next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Absolutely huge anger out there at the idea of ID cards in the UK. It's being suggested as a solution to illegal immigration. Arthur has messaged on X, good evening, Mark. France have digital ID and yet it has not helped with illegal immigration whatsoever. Nadia's the same. She's not happy with this idea. Legal IDs, says Neil, are the gateway to a Chinese social credit system. Look at the Ministry of Justice this week talking about sentencing that excludes CI evicted criminals' rights to travel, attend leisure events. It is a slippery slope, says Neil. Would ID cards make Britain safer? I'm undecided. So help me make my mind up. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to use three words that I don't often utter, Sam, which is I don't know. My instinct is against, because I was horrified by the state overreach during COVID, during the pandemic. And I do worry that a cashless society upon which we are dependent of ID cards will become very authoritarian. I think there are huge risks. But if it fixed illegal immigration, I'd be interested. So educate me, 0344 499 1000. Lucy Letby's chilling notes were seen as confessions. But leading therapist Emma Kenny says they may be proof of her innocence after 25 years studying psychopaths. She believes the courts may well have got it wrong, that this could be the biggest miscarriage of justice in history. But here's a question for you. Is looking at that case again an insult to the families of the victims? I'll speak to a top expert, and let me tell you, he's got some shocking things to say. Also, some breaking news tonight, some really worrying statistics about migrant crime. The Centre for Migration Control has found that foreign nationals' sexual offence convictions are up 62% since 2021. Nationalities linked to small boats crossing saw a 110% increase. This is a real concern. Theft up, robbery up, arson and criminal damage up, and sexual assault up. We'll analyse those figures and we'll also discuss how to fix the issue. So, folks, a busy 3 hours. You can message me 87222. You can call me 0344 499 1000 or send us a post on X at talkTV. A busy hour to come. Let's go. Now, folks, it is the interview they were all chasing. It's the booking they wanted. Here we are, Mark Dolan in for Kevin O'Sullivan for the next 2 hours. And I'm delighted to say we're joined down the line by none other than the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, with a twist. Deputy Prime Minister, welcome to the show. And I'd just like to remind our viewers and listeners that you've just forked out £800,000 on a third property, a seaside pad, as Labour cracks down on so-called greedy second home owners. Is this an example of Labour's double standards?
I have to say, Mark, I am quite shocked to be here myself, because I was told this was Sky News. You look absolutely nothing like Trevor Phillips, so I'm not very impressed.
This is a proper news outfit, Deputy Prime Minister. This is where we don't have a narrative. We don't brainwash people. We just have the truth. This is the home of common sense.
Well, that's debatable as far as I'm concerned. But no, sorry, I didn't really hear what you said because I was so shocked.
Well, perhaps you chose not to hear, Deputy Prime Minister. You've got 3 homes now. That's not a great look for a left-wing politician, isn't it? It's double standards. It's total hypocrisy.
No, it is not, Mark. It is. Look, the one that I am in presently, Admiralty House, it's not mine, is it? I'm just borrowing it for a bit. So technically, that is not my home. It is just somewhere where I happen to stay when I am at work. You can't really call it an home, and I'm allowed an holiday home. Everybody has an holiday. Who doesn't have an holiday home? It is a completely normal thing for any British hard-working person to want to have. And, you know, we're all in a very good position now, us British people, because as we promised, you're all going to have more money in your pockets, which is defo true. And so, you know, why not spend it on an holiday home? And, you know, that's a nice thing.
But do you not think, as you're making life harder for people with second homes, that when you purchase your third, that's a slap in the face to those people? They're your voters.
No, it's not purchasing a third, though, is it? That is very dangerous misinformation, Mark. I'm not having that. It's not purchasing a third home. It is simply buying an holiday home. It's very, very different. Very different.
Why do you need so many properties, Deputy Prime Minister?
They need somewhere to go and relax when they work as hard as us Labourers do. We have to be able to go somewhere. I've got a lot of mates in Brighton, you know. Our Ivor lives in Brighton. It's nice to see him. He's not about as much these days, but, you know, it's nice to be able to go and get a little bit of fresh sea air, go out in a boat and just, you know, relax with your mates.
Well, you must be, obviously you're happy in East Sussex. There are loads of lefties there. It's a pretty woke part of the country. So it's like a home from home for you.
Yeah, there's some very lovely people. City of Sanctuary, isn't it? It's Brighton. It's lovely. Very...
Did they think twice about taking you, Deputy Prime Minister?
Why would they? They know that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet, so they were very happy to have me there. Thank you very much.
Do you not think it was naive of you and perhaps politically a little foolish to purchase a third property, given there was such a debate about 2 of your previous properties and where you lived in the 2010s?
Listen...
You got previous on this, Deputy Prime Minister.
It is done and dusted, all above board. I've declared
dusted
it.
over, under the carpet.
No, everything was done exactly how it was supposed to be done. So there was you're just making a mountain. Well, you would make a mountain out of a molehill because you talk TV and that's what you do. You're far right adjacent.
What we do is we get to brass tacks. It was a complete mystery as to which your main residence was in the 2010s. Some discussion, some debate about whether you paid enough capital gains tax on those properties. And here you go again with property number 3. I mean, you sound, Deputy Prime Minister, quite greedy if I'm not being too obtuse.
No, well, you are. You're being quite... They don't do this to me on Sky News. So I don't see why you should... Listen,
are they far right adjacent as well, Sky News?
No.
They're far left adjacent, aren't they?
They give me a fair hearing. And, you know, I love... Trevor Phillips is fantastic. I don't really know why you're giving me such an hard time. There's nothing wrong with what I have done. Everything is, all the checks and balances are done. Everything is above board.
Is it not an unusual look, Deputy Prime Minister, for a self-declared socialist to own 3 properties?
It's not free. That we keep saying the ownership. This is the details. You're getting completely wrong. It's not. I don't own 3 properties, do I? I don't own Admiralty House, do I? So it's
you have your Grace and Favour apartment, you've got 2 other properties, you've got 3 homes during a cost of living crisis, Deputy Prime Minister, and yet you are an emblem of left-wing political thought. You couldn't make it up. It's absolute double standards. And my viewers and listeners are furious.
I don't think they are. I think they've got more important things to be worrying about, like all of these far-right idiots waving flags around that they've got no business waving around and carrying on like idiots outside hotels. I don't think they care about whether I've got an holiday home or not. I don't think they're bothered. It's just you, Mark.
Now, Deputy Prime Minister, did you describe the people who are protesting outside migrant hotels because of the impact on the local community and the safety of women and children. Did you just call those people idiots or fools? Did you just dismiss their concerns?
No, I think the people that are climbing up lampposts are idiots. Those are the idiots. Those are the people that we're sick of seeing the sight of, and they're giving us all a very bad name at the moment. Why can't you, if you're allowed, you're entitled to protest? And it's absolutely, if you want to stand outside an hotel instead of going camping for a couple of weeks or going on an Avon holiday or whatever it is that you people like to do, then
Centre Parks.
that is up to maybe Centre Parks if you've got a little bit of money. That whatever. Well, you have, because we've been putting it in your pockets without you realising. But if that is what you want to do, if you want to stand outside an hotel moaning about things, that is your right to do so. But don't be climbing up lampposts. That's ridiculous and very dangerous as well.
You've been climbing up the housing ladder. Now, this property was valued at £800,000. Where's all this money coming from?
Look, that is absolutely none of your business. And I have very, very
You're the Deputy Prime Minister. It's all of my business and my viewers and listeners.
I have very sound financial advice. I'm always asking our Diane what she thinks I should do. And she's done the sums for me. And she said, you can well afford it. Go for it. Have a little bit of fun. Go down the beach. Get in a little dinghy or whatever and just chill out with your mates.
So Diane Abbott has been crunching the numbers for you. Is that right, Deputy Prime Minister?
She's dead good with the numbers. She's dead good. You can.
She's no Carol Vorderman, Deputy Prime Minister. Her track record with mathematics is abysmal. She's humiliated herself on the radio airwaves on more than one occasion with her rather unique and idiosyncratic maths. And now she's doing your financial advice for you.
Sounding very far right adjacent there, Mark. You can't be criticising like that. That's not acceptable, is it? Come on.
Now, let's get to this property itself, Deputy Prime Minister, without wishing to be impertinent. What do you get up to in this property, this holiday home of yours?
None of your business. What I get, that is private. What do you get up to? Don't tell me. I don't want to know what you get up to. But what I get up to in my private residence is my business. Do you vape? Deputy Prime Minister, in your new home? That's my business. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But that is legal. Everything's above board, so I don't know why that's even an issue. Because, Deputy Prime Minister, you were seen on an inflatable dinghy enjoying a vape cigarette. Now, of course, it's a free country, but is that the best image to project to the world for such an important office of state that you inhabit, Deputy Prime Minister? Listen. I had a very good reason for going in that dinghy. I was told by a load of very, very influential people in Westminster that I needed to put myself in the shoes of our very important visitors to the country and really live the trauma that they have lived. They've had to come through war-torn Germany, war-torn France, to get here, and it's brave of them to even get in a dinghy. So I decided, all right, fine, I'll get in a dinghy and see what it's like for them. And at that moment, some idiot with a phone camera decided to take a photograph of me and put it all over the far right adjacent news. Pathetic. You can't do anything these days. That was work. That was work. I was doing work. I was trying to imagine the trauma that these poor people have been through coming over. Oh. And there you go. Well, indeed. And were you tempted to throw your documents in the sea and your mobile phone? Were you tempted to be accommodated in a migrant hotel? I mean, you enjoy occupying various properties. Why not add a 4-star local hotel to that? You're a little bit obsessed with properties and hotels and holidays and things like that. And, there's more important things going on in the world. Well, let's talk about that. You refer to your government, Deputy Prime Minister, as Us Labours. Can I ask you about the performance of Us Labours recently, given the fact that unemployment is up, inflation is up, and growth is down? Us Labours are a flop. No, look, everything takes a little bit of time. And, all of the downwards news, all of the negative news, we all know why that is. That is down to 14 years of Tory failure that we have had to clean up for everything that the previous government did. And it has taken a little bit of time, but we are on the up. We are so back that the adults are very much in the room and have taken over. And I think we're doing a cracking job.
And you've been tasked personally, Deputy Prime Minister, with building 1.5 million houses. How's that going? Where are we at now? It's 500,000 maybe?
It's hard. It's hard to keep up. There's so many going up. I have personally.
Keep buying them. No wonder we got a housing shortage.
Got me hard at. I've got my IVs, and I have been getting the work done, and we've built absolutely loads. I have personally flattened a load of allotments to make more space for more houses to be built. And we just, I'm not afraid to roll my sleeves up and get some work done. Maybe you need to try it sometimes, Mark.
I've heard your green finger, and I've got to say, Deputy Prime Minister, let me ask you before you go, because we know you're on a tight schedule. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is under pressure at the moment. First of all, does he enjoy your full and unqualified support?
You mean unqualified? I am very qualified, thank you very much. Very misogynistic saying that.
About that, Deputy Prime Minister. Do you support your boss, Sir Keir Starmer? Because you've had previous battles with the PM. He tried to essentially ease you out of the shadow cabinet, and you wound up having more jobs than you started with.
I don't know again, there's a lot of misinformation being peddled here. I am very supportive of our Keir. He's having a little break at the moment. He's, putting his feet up for a bit. He's worked very, very hard. And I am in full support of everything he does. I think he's doing a cracking job. And yeah, definitely getting support from me.
Do you think it's entirely appropriate, Deputy Prime Minister, to be drinking what looks like a pint glass of wine on the national television and radio airwaves?
It's vodka, and that's down to you stressing me out. So I can do what I'm on the holidays. I can do what I like. You don't get to dictate. Well, honestly, what's she wearing? What's she drinking? I mean, I feel like Meghan Markle at this point. It's absolutely ridiculous, the amount of criticism levelled at me.
I wouldn't go as far as Markle. Don't worry about that, Deputy Prime Minister. Last but not least, Sir Keir Starmer is now more unpopular than Rishi Sunak was at the last election. If Sir Keir Starmer falls, would you consider replacing him as leader of Us Labours?
Listen, let me be clear. I do not want to be leader of Us Labours. Us Labours have a fantastic leader. He's doing a cracking job. And no, I absolutely do not need to be lining myself up for the stress that it is to run a country. I have told Lorraine Kelly this already. It is very ageing being a prime minister. That's no offence to previous prime ministers, of course, but it's very ageing. So no, I don't want it. I don't want the job. I'm happy with. I'm building all the houses, and I'm doing a lot of good. So I'm happy with where I am. Thank you very much.
My thanks to the unassailable Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, aka Intel Lady on X and elsewhere. What a privilege. That was the interview of the century. Next up, your calls and a big debate about some major issues of the day.
The reality is that this country is built on the backs of those small businesses. Our entire economy is built on it. They fund the public services that everybody uses. And by taxing them to death, as we've seen by this Labour government, whether it be that national insurance increase, that jobs tax, we know what that's costing businesses. You've just heard a horrific example of that bill. The employment rights bill, or whatever Labour want to brand it, that's going to put more red tape on employers and make it even harder to create jobs. The reality of throwing people on the scrap heap, taking them out of work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
On ID cards, this from Peter. Hi, Mark. Why don't we use DNA to keep our country safe? Take it at birth and take it from people entering our country. The only people who would be afraid of this were people who wish to do wrong. Another unnamed listener, Talk Radio, they are. ID cards will be forged, so then they'll say an implant with digital information will be needed for our safety. Then we are in trouble. Lucy says, hi Mark, I lived in Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, felt very safe and was never asked for my ID. I knew my job depended on my behaviour. Legal IDs, says Neil, are the gateway to a Chinese social credit system. And how about this from James in Redhill in Surrey, who says, Mark, digital ID won't solve anything. The police will be too scared to ask for it for fear of being called racist. It will, however, creep and be used against us. Anything Tony Blair suggested should be treated with extreme caution. And how about this from Neil? Mark, next is a cashless society to crack down on Turkish barbers, so this awful government can be sure to squeeze every penny out of you. Ernie, hi Mark, digital ID cards won't control illegal immigration. It will control the British people. Brilliant stuff. Look, keep those messages coming. New analysis shows that foreign nationals arriving on small boats are responsible for an unexpected and shocking rise in serious crimes, including sexual offences, theft, robbery and arson. I'm delighted to welcome Robert Bates, the director of the Centre for Migration Control, who has the figures. Robert, welcome to the show.
Evening, Mark. Good to see you back in the chair.
Oh, thank you so much. Great to be back at the home of common sense. Tell me about some of the details of this report and what it reveals about migrant crime.
Yeah, so our report shows the increase that we've seen in convictions, especially sexual offence convictions of foreign nationals between 2021 and 2024. So really from when the Conservative Party embarked on their post-Brexit immigration system up until last year. And what it really does show is the scale of the increase that the immigration system we've had imposed on us by the Conservative Party has led to. 62% increase in foreign national convictions for sexual offences. For other offences, it's a lot higher. Across the board for non-summary offences, it is 20%. And certain nationalities really stick out when you look at the increase in sexual offences. So India, for instance, has seen a 257% increase in the number of convictions for sexual offences. Bangladesh, 100%. So this is clearly a huge problem. And then when we look at those nationalities that are overrepresented in the small boats crossings, we see an even more stark picture, which is a 110% increase. And I think that really gets down to where the conversation currently is in the country, in this sense that the hotels and the houses of multiple occupancy that those that have come across the channel have been put up in, rather than being detained, has actually led to an uptick in crime in communities. And I think when you see figures such as these, you start to understand why the British public are increasingly fed up with the way our asylum system has been operating. Now, whether the Labour Party actually have a plan to get to grips with this, it would seem not. Of course, they're very adamant they're going to be shutting down the hotels. But if that simply means moving individuals to houses are scattered around communities, and I really don't think that solves the fundamental problem here, which is that the small boats crisis is leading to an uptick in crime in the country.
Is there a danger of characterising all foreign nationals as criminals?
Well, I don't think the data does show all foreign nationals are criminals. I think what it allows us to do is to start have a conversation about how we can actually make sure that those that are coming to the country aren't committing crime. And I think we don't do enough at our borders. We don't do criminal record certificate checks on a majority of visa routes. So hundreds of thousands of people have come in legally in recent years without us even knowing their criminal record background. I think when you start talking about the illegal migration issue, these are people we don't know anything about. These could very well be people with dangerous backgrounds. We know from these statistics that they come from nationalities that are certainly overrepresented when it comes to sexual offence convictions. So I think it doesn't show a blanket all foreign nationals are likely to be committing crimes, but it does show that certain nationalities are overrepresented in this statistic. And the hope would be that policymakers would look at information such as this and take it from there and start to tinker with the immigration system and make sure that it's actually keeping the British public safe, because that is the primary responsibility of the Home Office, after all.
And do we know about the split between those who have entered the country illegally, and then those who are here by way of sort of legal net migration, that overall figure of people who have successfully moved to this country? Do these figures pertain to those who have entered Britain illegally or not? Is it all foreign nationals?
It's all foreign nationals, unfortunately, and this is something that MPs such as Robert Jenrick and Reform MPs are pushing for. We need to know the immigration status of nationals committing these crimes. We need to know what visa route they've come in on. We need to know whether they've come in illegally. When it comes to those nationalities represented on the small boats, a majority of people from those nationalities are coming in the UK via those routes. So there's an inference that can be made there. But again, because the government has been so woeful at publishing this data officially, we don't really have a full picture yet. I hope what publishing this data does start is a conversation about what more needs to be collected, and the Home Office has recently indicated that it might start to publish more of this data, but I think we need it quicker, we need it sooner, and we need to start taking action immediately.
Most definitely, and it's a range of offences, as you've outlined: sexual offences, theft, robbery, arson, and of course the other issue with those crossing the channel illegally, the authorities are concerned about terror links as well.
Yes, and rightly they should be. We know that we have already seen instances of Iranian terrorists coming across on the small boats, and this really is a terror organisation's sort of dream, the situation we have at the moment. About 2% of the people that come across on the small boats, 2 to 4%, we actually know who they are. We have documents that allow us to trace their history in recent years. So, terror groups will be looking at this situation and really thinking, there is an opportunity to send individuals that deliberately are going with the intent of not wanting to do the British public well and to wanting to cause harm. So I think Keir Starmer is being dragged kicking and screaming to recognising the national security and the security implications with the small boats crisis. But so long as it continues, and so long as these individuals aren't being detained but are instead being scattered around communities across the country, we are likely to see the figures that we've published today and will continue to grow, and we are likely to see continuing horrific attacks such as have been reported in recent months.
Anyone of sound mind wants these illegal boat crossings to end, but is there a concern that a good portion of these crimes are committed by people who are legally here and who have been welcomed into the country? And if that's the case, what is the solution if that's happening?
That is a very big concern. I mean, we also know from last year that a quarter of sexual assault convictions and rape convictions were foreign nationals, and a large proportion of those individuals will be those that were welcomed in. And what we're pushing for at the Centre for Migration Control is greater vetting based on the data that we do have. And if certain nationalities do appear to be overrepresented, then we need to start putting them on what used to be called the red list in the Home Office until 2020. And they used to use the data they had on nationalities to start carrying out increasing vetting on individuals applying to come here legally, because of course we see 750,000 have come across in the last 12 months legally. So a large proportion of foreign nationals are coming via the legal routes, but I don't think, especially when we've got a low-skilled, low-wage immigration system, we're actually doing anywhere near enough to make sure that we're only bringing in the best and the brightest and those that aren't going to cause us harm whilst they're here.
What would you say to those who argue that most crimes of all natures are committed by indigenous Brits?
The two words, per capita. So, of course, we live in a predominantly British country, so most crimes will, by their very nature, be committed by British people. But we need to look at the overrepresentation of certain nationalities in these statistics. So, countries such as Afghanistan and Eritrea that are 20 times more likely to be convicted of sexual offences. That's information that we know from the Ministry of Justice. These are the kind of conversations that should be had. So, of course, not everyone coming from those countries is going to be committing those crimes, but there is an increased likelihood that an individual from those countries might be committing these crimes, and that's something that an immigration system should have at its very heart. It shouldn't just be pursuing this cheap notion of GDP growth. Line goes up, everything's better. Let's actually make sure that people coming here are going to assimilate, are going to partake in society fully, and aren't going to be committing any crimes, because frankly, there shouldn't be a single migrant that's coming into the country and falling foul of our law. I think that's basic common sense, and I think the majority of the population would agree with that position.
And of course, there's another issue here, Robert, which is that we appear, based upon these statistics, to be either allowing criminals to come in via the small boats or indeed welcoming people who go on to commit crimes into this country through legal means. It's not just the folks that come in and break the law, though, is it? It's people that come from different cultures with different attitudes to women and with different attitudes to what it is to be a citizen altogether.
I think that's quite right, and I don't think we do anywhere near enough to actually have self-confidence in our ways of doing things, our norms, our cultures, our values. Instead, we allow individuals to come from certain parts of the world to bring with them their traditions and their ways of doing things that really are quite alien to how we see things in this country. And I think there's a particular problem with Middle Eastern and Asian countries where they do seem to bring a preponderance of attitudes that many of us would towards women and girls that many of us would think simply aren't appropriate. And that this has been allowed to happen because our integration and assimilation strategies have had this cultural relativism at their heart, where we've kind of thought that everyone with any cultural background is going to come and enrich us with their culture. But the simple fact of the matter is we're very lucky in this country to have attitudes and norms and values that probably are better than most parts of the world, and we shouldn't be ashamed of saying that fact.
Robert, what is the end game for the Centre for Migration Control, if that's not a silly question? I mean, clearly you want to control migration, but where would you go with the numbers? You would obviously, in an ideal world, stop the boats unilaterally, which is the aim and the goal, the stated goal of Reform UK if they win the next election. But what about those legal numbers? I mean, would you get them down to 100k, 50k, zero?
Well, we know from polling now that the single most popular position in the country is net negative immigration, which is more people are leaving after the expiry of their visas, their work visas or their study visas, than are actually coming in. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no immigration, but it simply means that the outflows are greater than those coming in. And I think after the period of mass migration we've had over the last 5 years of, over 1 million people coming in some years, many of them low skilled, many of them on low-wage jobs, a tiny proportion of them actually coming to work. Only 14% of visas are awarded to people on work base. I think we need to start having a recalibration. We need to recognise that what we've gone through over the last 5 years was unprecedented, historically unprecedented, and therefore a measure around net negative immigration is something that I think would not only sort of help us with GDP per capita growth, but would actually also stabilise the debate for a period of time.
The elephant in the room, though, before I let you go, Robert, is that Brits are not having enough babies, are they? We don't have enough families. So we're in the throes of an ageing population. How do we square that circle without mass immigration?
Well, obviously we need to do more to boost our birth rate, but putting that to one side, I think we also need to recognise that some of the roles that we're currently plugging with low-skilled immigration, such as in the health and social care sector, there is huge advancements in technology taking place. An ONS report from a few years ago suggested that within the next decade, about 50% of the functions within the health and social care sector could be automated. And you think about in terms of paperwork and some of the cleaning processes, there is something here that needs to be said about actually making sure we do capital investment and force those care sector homes to actually start investing in the future rather than just relying on an endless stream of cheap, low-skilled labour that ultimately costs us more in the long run.
Well, it's a false economy, isn't it? Encouraging people who are low-skilled to come into the country to plug gaps in areas like social care and elsewhere. It's a false economy because I read a stat recently that if somebody that comes here as a low-skilled worker to work in a care home, if they live to the age of 90, I think the net cost to the taxpayer is around £1 million per head, per individual. Is that right?
That's right. That's the OBR, so the government's own fiscal watchdog. That's indicative. And of course, migrants do age as well. Migrants get old, and what we will actually see is a large number of those that have come into work in the care sector. After 5 years, they get what's called indefinite leave to remain, and can then leave that sector and go and do other jobs. So the idea that we are plugging in the long term gaps is something that really is a false economy, and actually we will see a compounding of problems if we don't act soon and start forcing that innovation and that automation to take place.
Robert, great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Robert Bates is the director of the Centre for Migration Control. Your reaction, 03444991000. What do you think about net zero immigration? Would you entirely close the door? 3 years, 5 years, just for the country to recalibrate and for our infrastructure to recover? Or would the country fall over. Let me know what you think. Net zero immigration. Would you go for that? Would you go for a break even annually? And also after this, you are furious about ID cards. We'll get to your calls next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of messages coming in on ID cards. Would that tackle illegal immigration? Would it make Britain's streets safer? Debbie says, Mark, they say they're worried about terrorists coming over, then give them a mobile phone, a laptop, internet and international calls. How stupid are politicians? Mike says, Mark, I'm in the Philippines at the moment and everyone has an ID card and it makes life a lot easier. If you go to anywhere that needs to check on your ID, you just show your card rather than the hassle of having to show a passport, driving licence or student ID. But having to show your ID is not very often. And if anyone in the UK is against showing an ID card, it would suggest they have something to hide. Well, of course, that's the issue, isn't it? People always suggest with CCTV, with ID cards, that if you're not a criminal, you've got nothing to hide. We were talking about facial recognition cameras the other day, and that obviously is quite promising technology, because lots of trouble happens in the street, and if the authorities can actually look at the video footage and identify via facial recognition who that person is, they can turn up at their address and arrest them straight away. Now, on paper, that's good, but actually the technology is not there yet, and the Face ID has proved to be a little unreliable, and that is a major problem in terms of any potential miscarriages of justice. I mean, I think the main argument against the digital IDs is what we experienced during the pandemic, because we had state overreach. I mean, I was sitting in this studio early in the pandemic when professors and, you know, all sorts of medics were saying, oh, it might be quite a good idea to wear a face covering, you know, it's just a considerate thing to do if you're sitting on a train. It was a suggestion, wasn't it? It was a friendly suggestion. And of course, what happened is they mandated the face coverings. And we saw during COVID, and you're going to have the same thing with net zero, and you may have the same thing with ID cards, is that a suggestion becomes an instruction. It becomes tyranny. It becomes a place where you don't want to live, a supposedly free country where, frankly, you're not free at all. The issue I've also got is the Tony Blair factor, because Tony Blair is an authoritarian. He's New Labour. He definitely affected our issues regarding safety and civil liberties when he was Prime Minister. We're still paying the legacy for that. Listen, I'll get to more of your calls shortly, but let's get on to Lucy Letby now, because her chilling notes were seen as confessions, but leading psychotherapist and psychiatrist Emma Kenny says that they may be proof of innocence. After 25 years of studying psychopaths, She claims that the court may have got it wrong. The jury was shown notes reading, "I killed them on purpose and I am evil." Prosecutors presented this as a smoking gun example of evidence. But Kenny says that thousands of patients write similar dark thoughts and suggests it could be emotional venting, not a literal confession, and claims the defence team failed to explain the psychology properly. Well, who better to cast some light on this than clinical psychologist Dr. Damien Wild. Dr. Wild, welcome to Talk.
Good evening, Mark.
Do you think that Lucy Letby's case needs another look?
I think often in today's society, you see it on internet forums and social media, is people see a tiny part of the narrative and then jump onto it, as what has happened with some of the examples from Lucy's notes. I think we need to be more curious and more analytical about this, because I think there are a number of psychological nuances involved in the notes. And of course, there's context, and context is everything, which the general public and a number of people are not tuned into.
Most definitely. And what do you think about this idea that Lucy Letby may have simply been venting and going through some kind of emotional process when she wrote these notes?
Well, I was having a reflective think this afternoon about these notes, and as I was jotting some notes down on a pad, I just drew an arrow and I wrote down trauma reactions. Okay? Because let's not forget what she was going through in terms of she's lost a job. She's being accused of the most horrendous crimes. Her life has been completely and utterly ripped apart. So she's going through a serious, complex trauma, or would have been extremely distressed. And often when people are in such a state, their thoughts can be dark, negative. I think she was probably carrying around in her head a lot of deep, dark thoughts, some really complex feelings, and she's trying to make sense of it all. Because often that's what I'll do in the psychotherapy room with people I work with. They want to make sense of what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And often people can express themselves in different ways. People can do it verbally in the therapy room. People can do it through drawing, art means, music. And some people will write things down, as was suggested to Lucy by her therapist at the time. But I also think we shouldn't just tune into some of the, lines from the notes which the media sprung upon, which was things like, "I killed them." There's also a lot of other lines in the notes, things like, "I'm not good enough." How can life be this way? Things like that. So I think it's important. A lot of those other kind of words which she's written point to someone who's maybe highly self-critical, negative about herself, and perhaps as well, and we don't know, we can't say whether she is innocent or guilty until that's looked at by the review board, but perhaps carrying some guilt around that she wasn't there for the babies that she was supposed to care for. So I think there's a plethora of complex emotions at play. And of course, when someone's experiencing something like that, they have to express themselves in some way. And with Lucy, she's written some of that down. So I think I agree with some of the points made in Emma's article, yes.
Is it possible to be under so much pressure that you begin to question your own innocence under those circumstances?
I think psychologically, she would have felt under threat. She would have felt attacked. People in work didn't believe her. Suddenly the police, the courts are becoming involved. She's, involved in this huge kind of legal process which is going on. So I think her mind would have been jumping to all kinds of different kinds of thoughts. So absolutely, yes, she might have started to think, well, okay, I've been accused of these crimes, babies did die, maybe it was my fault. Often in the therapy room, I see people who often carry shame and guilt around people that they were close to that died, and will often say to me in the therapy room, it was my fault. It was my fault that they died. Yeah. And of course it wasn't, but it's often when someone is in such a distressed state, right, they will think in a negative way. The brain thinks in a very, very negative, dark way when someone is in a deep trauma and in such an emotional and psychological state.
In a very similar way to the mentality, the psychology of a victim blaming themselves for the crime visited upon them. Is that a similar sort of manifestation, a similar syndrome?
Yeah, it can be similar in that sense, because I do a lot of work with children and adults who've experienced childhood sexual abuse, and often at the start of therapy, they carry such shame and such guilt. They will often say things like, it was my fault, I deserved it, right? And I think with Lucy, she's in this workplace where obviously there was high death rates for babies. People are looking for answers, explanations, and suddenly she's been accused. The police are building a case. It's going to be this legal process. It must have been, whether she's innocent or guilty, it must have been psychologically an incredibly difficult place for her. And so she's just pouring things down onto paper, right? So I think there's context involved.
Is revisiting...
There's nuances at play.
No, I hear you, Dr. Wild. I mean, is revisiting this case and even having this conversation offensive to the families of the victims, do you think?
I think, obviously, the families of the babies that died will have suffered the most horrific traumas and will still be in pain, OK? And I think any decent person would have empathy, warmth and understanding towards them. And of course, it's going to complicate their grief that this process is being dragged on, and they may hear stories or listen to, news segments on shows, and it's going to be extremely difficult for them. But there are a number of people who have doubts. Lucy's legal team have put together a case, as we know. They've compiled a dossier, which the review board are going to look at. So I think if there is any doubt, then we have to be curious, and then things have to be analysed in a very detailed and thorough way.
Damien, a privilege to have you on the show. My thanks to Dr. Damien Wild, clinical psychologist. Is discussing the Letby case an insult to the families of the victims and the victims themselves? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Next up, ID cards and you're not happy.
The reality is that this country is built on the backs of those small businesses. Our entire economy is built on it. They fund the public services that everybody uses. And by taxing them to death, as we've seen by this Labour government, whether it be that national insurance increase, that jobs tax, we know what that's costing businesses. You've just heard a horrific example of that bill. The employment rights bill, or whatever Labour want to brand it, that's going to put more red tape on employers and make it even harder to create jobs. The reality of throwing people on the scrap heap, taking them out of work.
And this first started in Epping, is that if they...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, folks, Paul in Northern Ireland says people have ID cards. It's your national insurance number. And Crispy says, first of all, welcome back to Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you, Crispy. It is brilliant to be here. Don't confuse digital ID and ID cards. They are completely different. Let's get the views of Jason in the Steel City of Sheffield. Good evening, Jason.
Yep, Steel City, all right. Well, it was a Steel City since they got rid of all the steel. But
I know, quite right. Before deindustrialisation. Jason, what do you think about this? Because I've got to say the vast majority of my viewers and listeners are dead set against ID cards, digital ID. And the issue is that they could be leveraged against us by an authoritarian government.
Now, I'm going to be a bit controversial here.
Careful, Jason.
No one will agree. No one will agree with me. It's just my thinking. Digital ID, it can go down the. People are worried about going down the Chinese route of social credit, aren't they? In my opinion, and this is the my opinion, which may be controversial. We should probably have a DNA database for everybody.
So what you would do is take the DNA of a newborn child, and that would go onto a database.
Yeah, but you get your DNA taken if you get arrested anyway. A lot of people get the DNA tested and put on a database anyway. It's not like it doesn't exist now. If you're born...
But it's the obligatory nature of it, Jason. Before a single crime has been committed, your DNA is in the property, in the gift of the government, and it's on a database, and you have no control over it.
Well, it is anyway. You know with DNA.
But only if, let's say, you've been involved in a crime or something like that. But I mean, for a normal law-abiding citizen, why should they be sitting on a database? They should be a free individual, shouldn't they?
Mark, you're sitting on a database in several databases all the time. There's dozens of databases you are sitting on. I'm sitting on a driving licence database. I'm sitting on the HMRC database. I'm sitting on that many databases, it doesn't really matter.
Well, Jason, as long as you're not on any registers, I'm quite happy. Jason in Sheffield, thank you for that call. Let's get Kevin in Leicestershire. Kevin, it seems like you're warming to this idea. Has the world gone mad?
Oh, God, I'm worried. To be fair, firstly, how are you, Mark? Nice to speak to you again.
I'm tickled pink, Kevin, because I'm back at the home of common sense, and we've got a full switchboard, and we've got to debate this, and it's very interesting because Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor, she actually said that she thought that Dubai was safer because of this technology, these ID cards. But the vast majority of people are really worried about the potential implications and how that technology could be used against us, the people, to control us.
Well, do you know what?
You're a free man, Kevin. You're not a number.
Look, I understand why a lot of your listeners, and to be fair, you get some smart, you can tell they know what they're talking about. You know, I understand their views, and to be fair, prior to this mass load of immigration we've had of all these, I would be right behind them. I was actually a little scared because I've heard so many people against it, but I was listening to Isabel and she convinced me in a lot of ways. Now, it depends how they're used. But firstly, your previous caller, he said no one would agree with him. There's a little bit I did agree with him on, actually, which he sort of touched on, which you've got a driving licence, you've got a national insurance number, you've all got mobile phones, you've all got forward-facing cameras. Everyone knows where you are. Everyone knows what you're doing. The only time they don't know what you're doing is if you spend some cash somewhere, and I think that's what people are probably worried about. I still try and use cash, by the way, as well as using my card or whatever, but it just depends. What I'm trying to get at, and this is my point on it, let's say a sensible government comes in and the next general election, all right? Let's say they turn the tap off And that's it, because I've got no faith Labour. I've got no faith in anything Labour do, let alone stopping the boat. So let's say they somehow stop the migration or curb it at least. You're still going to have thousands wandering the streets, and they may be easy to track if they're getting their pocket money. They may disappear into society. And this is where I do think ID cards could be useful if they're used in the correct way. Because if you need an ID card to do anything, it would really restrict everything they do. It would force them only to working in the black market, which a lot of them are going to do anyway. So it would depend how it would do. And it could also help with, I mean, I was thinking very obscure here, but I was even thinking all the shop thefts. You could have I really don't want to say this because I'm going to get loads of stick from your viewers, but if you bleat, it's like checking in when you're talking to go into a shop. I know everyone, I ain't got my card on there, things like that. I get it. But
papers, please.
All of a sudden, you could, because it's not just the immigration; it's the crime in this country is awful. This is not the UK anymore, and it's going to take a lot to recover it. And prior to all of this, I'm right behind most of your viewers, and I'm not disagreeing with them, but I can see some logic in it, depending on how it's used. However, I do accept their reservations.
Kevin, do you trust the technology, though? I mean, look at the Horizon scandal and the post office, which was trusted software, and look at all those people that were incriminated and jailed, some of whom are no longer with us. Surely this could happen with a database that's got your identity on there, maybe your DNA, a criminal record. And the bottom line is, you mentioned cash, but cash will sadly probably not be with us forever, which will allow the authorities to leverage these ID cards even further.
Well, when cash disappears, if it disappears, which it more than likely will, if you're using your bank card to do everything, pretty much everyone knows what you're spending your money on and what your interests are anyway. But like I say, I'm not disagreeing with it. It does depend how it's used.
But imagine in a future pandemic, Kevin, on your ID card, and there's a future pandemic, and you try to buy, I don't know, you want to buy something at Sainsbury's, and it will say, "Oh, no, this guy hasn't been vaccinated. He's not had his second jab." Computer says no. I mean, if there's that functionality, then a future authoritarian government will surely use it. Isn't that the problem?
Possibly, yeah. And that's why you've got so many of your viewers so apprehensive about it. I'm not disagreeing with them. Like I say, it depends how it's used. I mean, like I say, from what you've just said there, and this is why I'm saying I'm with everyone from what they said, but I'm now looking at the UK completely different with the crime and the amount of illegal migration here. If even a sensible government comes in, how are you going to turn this country around? That's possibly one way. But I do get what you're saying. I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle on this. I've got splinters in my back end.
Well, you do. Spare me the gory details. We've got more to come. Meghan's new TV show is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. We're in-app, we're online, we're on YouTube, we are on the internet, we are on the radio, and we are the home of common sense. A big last hour to come as Mark Dolan in for the legend that is Kevin O'Sullivan. So what do you think about net zero immigration? Should that be a goal for the next administration? What do you think? Would you go for zero immigration and close the door with the resultant impact that may have on public services? Is that a price worth paying for the infrastructure to recover, for our culture to assimilate, and for the damage to be slowly reversed? Or are we stuck with mass immigration to paper over the cracks of our broken economy for the foreseeable future? 0344 499 1000. Net zero immigration. Do we close the door? And a massive debate tonight on ID cards. Are they a price worth paying to tackle illegal immigration and to make sure that our streets are safer? Major concerns about our civil liberties. I'm torn. So you're going to have to convince me either way. 0344 499 1000. ID cards, are they the answer to Britain's national security problems? But let's start with the Duchess of Sussex, who is rarely out of the headlines. And I'm delighted to say that season 2 of With Love Meghan, which is her Netflix lifestyle series, which of course features the rather notorious flower sprinkles, the lavender towels, and the food purchased from a supermarket and put into a different bag and labelled. It's going to be back for, I believe, another 8 episodes, and Meghan has just dropped her latest little promo for it. Let's take a listen and a watch.
What was that you just added?
Flower sprinkles. I love them.
Wow, that's the gayest I've seen in a long time.
The flower sprinkles are back. Will anyone be watching? Well, I can think of one person that definitely will. It is the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, and the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Against my will, Mark. Against my will, I'll be watching.
This takes you back to when you were a little girl on Christmas Eve, looking at the presents under the tree, desperate to tear them open. But you just got to have one more sleep until the big moment comes. And you've got that with Love, Meghan. First of all, is anyone talking about season 2? Is it a hot topic, do you think? In the States, is there a buzz around the next few episodes?
That's such a great question, Mark. I just did an interview with Donna Bowling, who was an LA casting director, and she was like, are you seeing this on your feed at all? I'm not seeing anything on my feed. When Harry and Meghan released their original docuseries for Netflix, their only commercial success so far, there were billboards all over town here in LA. No billboards. When With Love Meghan was initially launched, I do believe that there was a Times Square digital billboard. We're not seeing the same type of enthusiasm coming from Netflix. We're not seeing ads like regular digital ads on web pages, entertainment sites like TMZ or Page 6. It does feel like there's a lack of enthusiasm here this time around, Mark.
What did you make of season 1 for those that didn't watch it, which is almost everyone?
Yeah, don't forget, Netflix did release a list of their most watched shows so far in 2025, and Meghan landed at 383. Prince Harry's Polo landing in the 3000s. But still, you would hope that something that had such a huge push PR-wise would land in your top 100 of 2025, and so far, not so great. What did I think of season 1? I thought it was I could watch all of those in, DIYs within 30 to 60 seconds on TikTok. I didn't understand. It felt backwards. The show felt like it's something that could have been made 15 or 20 years ago, but we've evolved as content consumers. And I didn't feel like Meghan had evolved with us. I think she's like stuck in this. I married Prince Harry in 2025, and that's when I shut my, or 2016, and that's when I kind of shut out the real world.
Well, I think they made a mistake at Netflix because they recorded all 16 of these shows back to back, didn't they? And what we're seeing now is the second half of that batch of films. And I'd say that's a problem because they've not been able to reflect on the public reaction to season 1. So what we're going to see tomorrow and for the next few days will be more of the same.
Yes, but editing has changed. I think I might have mentioned this to you previously, but if you watch the trailer that was initially released for season 2, it's Meghan thanking experts for their guidance. If you watch the first trailer for season 1, it's everybody singing praises to Meghan Markle. Oh, this is the most glamorous I've ever felt, says Mindy Kaling. It's everybody oohing and awing over Meghan. In season 2, it's Meghan going, oh, I'm so happy you're here to show me this. So it's interesting because I do feel like even in this clip you just showed, there's a little bit of self-deprecation. I mean, I know that that's asking a lot from this woman, but when he's like, that's the whatever, that's the lamest, he didn't use the word lame, but I don't know, whatever, that's the whatever I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was meant to be that's the gayest thing I've ever seen, I believe, he said.
Thank you for correcting me. I couldn't quite hear it. When he says that, I think that she's trying to look self-deprecating in the moment. So I don't know if it's been edited differently.
Right.
But do you get that sense too that they're trying to make her look a little bit more tolerable?
Yeah,
and
they've tried to rescue it, haven't they? And no doubt there's been the mother of all edits for the next 8. But they still have to work with the core material, and they still have to work, Kinsey, with someone who simply cannot disguise her very negative personality traits, her controlling nature, her jealousy, her narcissism, and at times her cruelty. I mean, the Mindy Kaling one was quite extraordinary, that moment when she corrected her about her name. So Mindy Kaling, for those that don't know, is a big star in America, isn't she? She's an actress, producer, and writer. She was in the American version of The Office, a very talented lady, a lot more talented and with a better CV than Meghan. And she said, oh, it's so great to be working with Meghan Markle. And Meghan retorts with, I think you'll agree, a flash of rage in her eyes. Didn't you know? I'm not Meghan Markle anymore. I'm Meghan Sussex. So this is a show which is supposed to be friendly. She's surrounded by all her mates and she attacks everyone.
Right. She's pursuing joy. I mean, yeah. Mindy Kaling, to this day, based on us seeing who's on season 2, remains the biggest star on this program. So to kind of slap her down and humble her or try to put her in her place in this very bizarre scene was hard for us to digest, because you're just thinking, like, you should be so grateful that Mindy Kaling decided to show up today and do this. I mean, they were planning a children's party with no children. It was the most, I mean, Mindy Kaling was really being a team player there. She was really, the fact that she even showed up was wild, but that was an odd choice to leave that in the edit. They could have removed that. It really probably was the most significant clip to come out of season 1. I would be surprised if you didn't agree.
And it showed her true essence. But the truth is, it doesn't matter how much they airbrush and how much they edit season 2. Her true nature will shine through, won't it? It's the body language. It's the look in her eyes and the little remarks.
It is, and we'll have to look for that. I'm interviewing Scott Rouse of YouTube fame about the body language, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
Oh, it's going to be fascinating. There's going to be a Christmas special as well, but it's not in any way a dead cert that this show is going to be recommissioned for so-called season 3. Is that right?
I suspect that... Well, first of all, I think that there's a huge question mark over this show. Will Meghan Markle have product tomorrow? In the next few hours, the countdown is on. Will she have the product to match the show? So will I be able to watch With Love Meghan and also jump on asever.com to purchase the fruit sprinkles? Because that is what this big experiment is about, Mark. Netflix is turning Meghan Markle into the next Home Shopping Network QVC personality. Okay, well, that only makes sense if you have the product to go with the launch, to go with the push. If I'm sitting at home watching this woman on TV and I want her stupid flower sprinkles, I should be able to get on her website and purchase it immediately. It is a huge failure come tomorrow if she does not have more merchandise on her website. It is unacceptable at this point for her to have this show and to shove this stuff down our throats and not have it ready to purchase. And so I think that that's something that we should look out for within the next few hours if the inventory matches the programming. If it does, then I would tell you that I do expect a season 3, because that aligns with Netflix trying to push this woman as a lifestyle guru and have the merchandise to go with the programming. If she doesn't have the merchandise to go with the programming, this is a failed experiment. This is a very expensive failed experiment, and I don't know if Netflix will continue to have the patience there.
And this new so-called deal, which is just a first look deal, which means the couple can pitch ideas to Netflix, which is not that different from being, a complete outsider that's pitching as a production company. But, an exclusive first look, maybe a few $1 million for that, but nothing like the 100 million that they allegedly got first time round. There's no evidence that Netflix want anything from Prince Harry, is there?
Well, I've been reporting since 2023 that they want a Princess Diana documentary from Harry.
Right.
I mean, I think that would justify them continuing to have this relationship. We've also discussed the other theory that in case things went south, they want the exclusive for Meghan if she were to ever leave Prince Harry. But I do think that around the same time that The Crown came out, Spencer came out, the movie, and Netflix had The Crown and Diana the musical, which was released on Netflix around the same time as The Crown. So Netflix loves Diana. Netflix pushes a lot of Diana content, and I do think that they want something Diana related from Prince Harry.
Well, yes, I misspoke actually, because when I was suggesting that Netflix don't want anything from Harry, they don't want any of his creative ideas for documentaries or TV shows outside of the royal sphere. It is Prince Edward syndrome, isn't it? Prince Edward had his TV production company, and he really struggled to get anyone to watch the non-royal content or to get that commissioned. So Harry's meal ticket remains his family and his pedigree as a royal. Do you think there's any chance that he would make a Diana documentary? Because I suppose it's 30 years since Diana's passing in 2027. Is it conceivable that this could happen?
I think yes. Again, I was the first to report this in 2024. I told Fox News that I knew of local people here in LA that were approaching him about a Diana documentary. And the Daily Beast makes a really great point that Harry sees Princess Diana as a symbol validating his own rebellion. And they think that Harry has every incentive to turn Diana into this icon of rebellion, positioning her as another royal crushed by the same forces that both Harry and Meghan claim to have escaped, a figure whose spirit justifies their departure. So this would not just be a way for Prince Harry to kind of hijack her legacy, which I know I say a lot, but I feel strongly about that. But it's a way for him to justify his actions with Meghan that have been so that we've criticized over the last 5 years. He's saying, look, you can't be mad at me. I'm just like my mom, but look what my mom did. And I think that it all, at the end of the day, aside from money, it's a PR exercise. It's another PR stunt from these two.
And Harry does need money, doesn't he?
Oh, I mean, 16 bathrooms, Mark. I mean, you and I have talked about how much toilet paper that adds up to here in Los Angeles.
There's a lot of toilet duck as well, and a lot of soap dispensers. The bottom line is that, this Meghan deal, it obviously would be predicated on him offering more royal content. However, he's between a rock and a hard place. If he makes a Diana documentary, that will enrage William, and it's pretty much game over for their relationship then, isn't it?
I think we're at game over. But wow. You're right. I think we
really?
are. I do. But when there was a a Diana documentary made by both William and Harry on the 20th anniversary. And according to friends of Prince William, that was meant to be the last word on Princess Diana. William made that very clear at the time. You know, but obviously Prince Harry has started this new life in California, and he has, there are very high expectations from Netflix and to keep them interested. And friends of William believe that Prince Harry is trying to claim Diana's legacy, and that if he does that, Prince William will fight back, whether it's an interview or him making his own documentary. They don't believe that Prince William will allow Harry to have the last word when it comes to the legacy of Princess Diana.
Most definitely, because Harry said some quite obnoxious things about Prince William in relation to Diana in the book Spare, particularly about William's appearance.
Yeah, saying that he was losing their mother's good looks, losing his hair and his mother's good looks. But I would, here's my argument as a royal commentator and as a royal reporter, and you do the same thing that I do. Harry to me is not somebody that a trustworthy narrator when it comes to his mother's life. I don't trust Prince Harry. I don't think he's a credible source. He spoke to Oprah Winfrey in an Apple Plus documentary shortly after they left the royal family about the racism that Princess Diana experienced when she started dating Dodi, and how he could really relate to that when he chose Meghan Markle to spend the rest of his life with. You and I both know, Mark, I mean, it's documented. Dodi Fayed was a cokehead who was engaged to an actress, another woman, when he starts seeing Princess Diana. Later, thanks to the BBC's investigation, we found out what Mohammed Al Fayed was up to allegedly behind the scenes at Harrods, attacking young women. Maybe it had nothing to do with race, Prince Harry, and everything to do with the fact that Dodi and his father weren't good people. And so I don't trust Prince Harry when it comes to him being the person that tells his mother's story. It was Prince William that Diana overshared with. It was Prince William sliding tissue under the door when he could hear her crying in the bathroom. She leaned on Prince William so much more emotionally, almost unfairly, and tried to keep Prince Harry out of the drama. I remember in one of, I think it's in Diana, Her True Story, when Prince Harry asks, "Who's Camilla?" Prince William is hurrying to try to rush him out of the room because he doesn't want Prince Harry to know who Camilla is. And Prince William is clearly savvy to the situation. So I just don't think that Prince Harry is a reliable narrator here when it comes to the life of Princess Diana.
Kinsey, before you go, is he much of a surfer? Jana, if you can, let's fire up this latest Instagram video posted by Meghan of Prince Harry being the surfer dude in California in the Pacific. Take a look.
Yeah, I mean, this is at a surf camp. I feel like this was a twofer. I think she wants to squash rumors that there's trouble behind the scenes of their marriage, and I think she's also using her husband to subtly promote With Love Meghan Season 2.
Right.
I think this backfires because it only reminds me of the man he used to be, the man that set up Senabali in 2006, the man that set up the Invictus Games in 2014, his military career. Now he's just a stoner surfer. I'm disappointed in that outcome.
Yes, it's unedifying that that's the son of the King of the United Kingdom in what looks like is that an artificial wave? Is there a machine producing those waves?
Yes, it's man-made. It's machine-made. Yes, he's at surfing
That's not very good for the environment, is it?
Like a little kid, he's at surfing camp this summer.
Yikes. And of course, Harry has no social media platform really, does he? So she's put this on Instagram, which would suggest that she controls his public image and she decides really when we get to see Harry and when we don't.
Wow, that's such a good point that I hadn't thought about. You're absolutely right. We occasionally get the Prince Harry visual, and of course we lose our minds.
Curated by his wife.
Yeah, but you know what? She knows that it's the only reason we care about her. The guy that she sleeps next to.
Now, on my YouTube show, The Mark Dolan Show, I've put Harry and Meghan on 24/7 Divorce Watch. For me, the only debate about if and when they divorce, obviously, I think it's a matter of time, but who's going to do the divorcing? I think if Harry waits too long, then Meghan will divorce him. What do you think? What is your appraisal at this point of the state of their marriage and its potential longevity?
I do think that Meghan would divorce him. And again, this goes back to the Vanity Fair report that she was already trying to shop a divorce book. She's divorced somebody before. She just threw those rings in a FedEx envelope and shipped them straight to poor Trevor Ingleson, who was crazy in love with her. All she wanted out of the divorce was the blender. So we've seen that she's capable of it. She's kind of ruthless when it comes to her relationships. Corey, the hot chef in Toronto, sayonara the second she met Prince Harry. So we've seen what she's capable.
And she divorced her own father, Thomas Markle.
Yes, she did. And he's devastated over that.
Devastating indeed. Kinsey, always a treat. Do check out Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, one of the biggest shows on YouTube for brilliant royal gossip, a highly entertaining show packed with useful intel and exclusives. My thanks to Kinsey Schofield, who is a very old friend of mine. Next up, the hideous and rather unedifying battle within the Beckham family. Britain's second royal family gets worse. That's right, the split is outrageous. It's exactly like Harry and Meghan, and this is the spoiled brat that is Brooklyn Beckham, their eldest son, who's run off to America with a rather controlling, rich American young woman. He's left his country. He doesn't talk to his family anymore, in exact parallels with the Sussexes. And we'll discuss his terrible cooking next with legendary Italian chef Aldo Zilli.
That hotel. This was policy.
Nigel's going to end the little boats crossings in 2 weeks. I have about as much faith in him doing that as we all have in Donald Trump having attained peace in 24 hours, which he hasn't done. It reminds me of the guy down the pub who says, I know what to do, we'll take £10 billion and we'll send them all back to where they came from. It's not that simple.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, listen, let's take a look at another royal drama. England's second royal family, Britain's second royal family, it is the Beckhams. And their eldest son, Brooklyn Beckham, has run off with an American actress. And he now doesn't speak to his family. He lives in another country. Does that sound familiar? That's Harry and Meghan all over. Well, he's quite notorious, this young man, because not only did he ignore David Beckham when he was knighted, which is the greatest honour in the land, no message from the eldest son saying, congratulations, Dad, on becoming a Knight of the Realm. He ignored his father on his 50th birthday and didn't even message him on Father's Day. So they're not on speaking terms. It's a horrible situation. Brooklyn Beckham, in the meantime, is busying himself with online cookery classes, and this is his rather exotic spaghetti. Take a look.
Today I am going to make a simple tomato pasta.
See, my days are cold without you, but I'm hurting while I'm with you. And though my heart
Bit of olive oil. I mean, this is not earth-shattering stuff. He's frying The tomatoes now. Basil. Wow, who ever thought of using basil in Italian sauce? Boil the pasta, I mean, this is mesmerisingly dull. Do not watch this video whilst operating heavy machinery. He's made tomato pasta with parmesan, and he thinks he's broken the internet. He hasn't. It's embarrassing. And someone that's even more embarrassed than I am is the legendary Italian celebrity chef and consultant to the restaurateurs of London and beyond, Aldo Zilli. Buonasera, Aldo. Welcome to Talk.
Marco, come stai? I haven't seen you for God knows how long, my friend. You look so young and beautiful.
Oh, it's the lighting. But Aldo, it's so good to see you. You've had too much Pinot Grigio.
I don't drink, mate. I don't drink anymore.
Well, that's
3
where
years.
Well, how long?
3 years now.
Well, now listen. How is that possible? Because I think of Italians and wine as like the great partnership. Why did you make that choice to go alcohol-free?
Pass. Got no idea.
Your health. Did you feel better for it?
I don't feel any better. I don't feel any younger. I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything at all.
Well, listen. I tell you what. Your body's a temple.
I might start again after this phone call.
Well, no, you might start when you're watching this cooking. So, what is your verdict on Brooklyn Beckham's spaghetti that you've just seen there? Is it a pomodoro? What is the sauce he just made?
Well, at least he's using fresh ingredients and he's cooking from scratch. You know, the boy is trying. What I didn't like the other day when he made the carbonara is he burned the guanciale. But then, you know, the guanciale, carbonara is only 3 ingredients. So if you burn one of them, you're pretty buggered. But, you know, he's cooking from scratch. And I have a young boy as well. You know, he's living abroad and he's cooking all the time because before he left, I taught him 25 recipes and now he's cooking them. So my advice to Brooklyn would be for me to go and see him and do the same thing. And then he won't be embarrassing himself.
Well, sure, because there are some more complicated recipes than the one that he's made in this video. We don't need videos of someone boiling pasta and mixing it with tomatoes, do we?
Well, the thing is, you know, social media, TikTok especially, I had a big conversation the other day with one of your colleagues in this radio station about chefs now being, cancelled on TV because TikTok, why would people watch half an hour of me when you can watch TikTok for 3 minutes, Brooklyn Beckham making the same recipe?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of rubbish myself. You know, we come to this profession. We are professionals, we chefs, and we do it with passion. And we don't, you know, if you watch us, obviously you're watching a professional. It's like anything. It's like watching David Beckham playing football.
Most definitely.
Watching me play football.
And the thing is, you learn in hard kitchens. You know, it's a tough life being a trainee chef, isn't it? And there's a tough hierarchy.
You got to do your apprenticeship. You know, you got to get kicked around a bit. Like when I learned was the 70s, and in the 70s, kitchens weren't as kitchens as they are now.
Yeah.
We were much. The treatment was quite difficult, and if you survive that, then you become someone, which I actually did. So here I am still now, all these years later, doing exactly the same thing, but cooking recipes from scratch and cooking recipes that we don't mess around with. You know, Italian food is simple, but our recipes are very, very important to us.
Does it annoy you to see celebrities jumping on the cookery bandwagon without having served their time?
Well, it does and it doesn't. You know, I mean, everybody has to work, I suppose. But I tried to become an actor. I was in Emmerdale once or twice, and
Is that right?
you know, yeah.
Did you play a sort of exciting
myself.
Italian man?
I played myself. Yeah,
Were you the love interest?
And no, I was judging the pub food. They got.
I was hoping you were like going to have an affair with the farmer's wife or something.
Well, I was hoping, but it didn't happen.
Because Italian men are very passionate, and you're very passionate, Aldo, and you're a fine-looking man. And you might have given up drinking, but you haven't given anything else up, have you?
No, I haven't given anything else up. No. I'm still married to a very young lady, and that's what keeps me young. I've got 2 beautiful children. Rocco is looks very similar to one of the Beckham's children, and he's living in Marbella. He's playing football abroad, and he's having a great time. He's 19 years old, and he knows how to cook because he's learned from the best. So that's the lesson.
Yeah, let's talk about Brooklyn and the family, because, I mean, Rocco is your 19-year-old son. If he fell in love with an American actress and left you and moved to another country and didn't speak to you anymore, and you get a knighthood, you're Sir Aldo Zilli, and it's also your birthday and all sorts of other things that are ignored, Father's Day, would you be very upset? Do you think David Beckham should be upset at Brooklyn's behaviour?
I think, knowing the way that they brought up their children, you can say whatever you want about the Beckhams, but I actually think that they brought up those children really nicely and very well, and down to earth, I'm assuming. But I would be devastated, not upset. But being Italian myself, I probably would deal with it a different way by just going to see him, whether he likes it or not, and have it out, because what is the point of keeping it in? He's not going to not speak to him for the rest of his life, so why suffer now? It's like the royals. What happened there. It's a similar situation.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think it could happen to a family like the Beckhams? Because, as you say, they try to raise their kids in a very normal way, and they teach them the work ethic, and they're very loving, and they're a very close family. So it's a mystery as to how this happened.
One slipped through the net, it always happens, and I think as soon as the third party gets involved, you don't know what agenda they have when they come into these families, these big families. I cooked for the McCartneys for 25 years, and I saw those children growing up. And Paul was always the father that I always wanted to be myself by keeping them grounded. Yeah. Even my children are worse spoiled than them. It's being a father and being a parent and bringing up children when you're in the public eye, it's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and life is short, and really Brooklyn and David need to speak. So if you were David, or your advice to David, get out there to California and go and see the boy and talk some sense into him.
David is a fantastic man. I've been a David's fan for all of his life, and I don't understand why this has happened. My advice to him is invite me as well. Invite me over. We'll give him a nice pasta lesson, and we'll go together.
Before you go, Aldo, cooking for Paul McCartney, that's pressure, isn't it?
Very much so, especially when the whole family. I cooked for Linda, bless her.
Yeah,
and
God rest her soul,
it was. She made a big thing of the vegetarianism and veganism, and she was, one of the first. And I even dedicated my vegetarian restaurant to him, Zilli Green in Dean Street, because he was coming there to eat all the time. So I said to him, I'm going to turn this restaurant vegetarian just for you. And it's the best thing I've ever done. But in those days, you can, in the 90s, vegetarianism is not what it is today.
No, most definitely not. And there's an awful lot of processed food that's entered the market, calling itself vegan, calling itself healthy, right?
Yeah, and it's not, to be fair. But, everyone to their own, Mark. People eat what they want at the end of the day. We can tell them whatever we want. Jamie is doing a great job of telling people what to do. But it's at the end of the day, it's what's convenient for people at home.
Aldo, what a treat to have you on the show. Talking food, talking family values, talking common sense. We'll speak soon. Grazie mille. Arrivederci. Aldo Zilli.
Ciao.
Brilliant stuff. What a great guy. Celebrity Italian chef like you don't need me to tell you. A bit of a borderline national treasure now, isn't he? Aldo Zilli. Next up, would ID cards make us safer? We'll discuss that next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, I'll get to your calls on ID cards in just a moment. But first of all, net zero immigration. Is that the way forward for a future administration of this country? John in Sutton. Mark, I want net zero immigration and I want to keep cash and no ID cards. Ernie says, hi Mark, we don't need digital IDs to make us all safer. We just need the police and the judiciary to do their jobs. That's why you can leave your house doors and car doors open and your mobile phones on a park bench in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, because the police and judiciary do good by the law, abiding citizens. Yeah, and Ernie, the culture is different. It's a culture in which you're just not going to break the law. It's not the done thing. It's an agreed social contract that you don't steal, that you don't burn buildings down, that you don't attack people, that you don't buy and sell drugs, that you don't carry a weapon. It is a culture, and it's a tradition now in some quite authoritarian parts of the world. And it's a tradition we used to have in Britain and one that we've lost. Well, we gave it away, didn't it? Let's be honest. Darren says, Mark, I'm sorry, but the fact that there are people in this country like your caller, Jason, who wants everyone's DNA taken and logged is frightening. I don't want an ID card, but that is nowhere near as dangerous as a digital ID. Anybody that thinks ID cards or digital ID is intended to stop illegal immigration is, I'm afraid, delusional. Illegal immigrants pretty much do not comply with the rules and the laws, and that won't change with IDs. We'll get to more of your messages shortly. Tarquin is in London. Good evening, Tarquin. Welcome to Talk.
Oh, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm better for hearing you. You've got a lovely, rich little cadence in your voice there, sir.
You're doing a grand job, sir. Really have to say, props to you. You're doing really
Thank
great.
You,
really
that's far too kind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, honestly, the reason I phoned in earlier, I'm really, actually, it's quite sad, honestly, because I caught towards the tail end of your sort of interview with your colleague Isabel Oakeshott earlier. I really could not believe that Isabel was basically sounded like she was working for the Tony Blair Institute now. I can't believe where she gets this notion that ID cards, somehow there's some simile between Britain, England, should I say, and the Middle East, Dubai, Saudi, and or Singapore. There's simply, it's like not comparing apples and oranges at all. It's absolutely. So I think what I said to your colleague who answered the phone, I think sadly on this occasion, Isabel Wokeshott, as I've had to rebrand her.
Oh, yikes, that might stick.
Isabel Wokeshott has now become, has just lost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of potential Reform voters and members to either Advance UK or Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain campaign. Now, whether or not she could reflect on that and think again, I hope she changes her mind, and I hope Richard isn't behind this at all, her partner Richard Tice, because I just think that Isabel Wokeshott has basically the best recruiting target for the other right-wing parties, if that's indeed what you call. I rather think you can't call Reform UK, which is rather sad, because Nigel went amazingly well earlier this week when he talked about the mass deportation of all the illegal criminals. Now, what the hell she's talking about, claiming, oh, let's give them some ID cards and then we'll know where they are. Gee, are we talking about what the hell's going on, Mark?
Now, I think Isabel Wokeshott is a little harsh. She's a very experienced journalist and she talks a lot of sense as, talks international editor. And perhaps she was speaking in a personal capacity. Don't forget, she was referencing Dubai, where there is no crime.
Yeah, but Dubai does not have a 1,000-year history of habeas corpus, English law, common law.
And they have a draconian judicial system as well.
It's a tribal Bedouin Regia kingdom. I mean, she's comparing that with England, over 1,000 years of English.
Do you think that's the issue? Are we conflating the culture of Dubai with the efficacy of ID cards?
Well, she is. Isabel Wokeshott is. We're not, and right-minded people won't be. And that is why I say, is she mad to be said? Reform were doing so well.
But I mean, Isabel is not Reform. You know, she is. I understand in a partnership with Richard Tice.
Mark,
but that doesn't mean that what he thinks is what she thinks.
She said she was a reform. She actually said it to you in
Sure,
this
but she's not like a policy maker there. I mean, she's in a relationship with the deputy leader.
No one's going to stick to her. If they all, I don't agree with that, then they're going to go to run away from that, aren't they? People who hear her say that.
She also stated, Tarquin, that it wasn't reform policy. I mean, would you not give her the benefit of the doubt that she's just talking about Dubai? Do you think this is a deliberate planting of a seed?
No, well, I'll tell you what it did. I'm a right mind, as you, Mark, very, 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 very rational. I think before I speak, and I just think I cannot believe why her argument for the case right was just completely full of holes. It didn't even bear any merit. I didn't go, was she right there? Nothing. There was nothing. Using Dubai, it's a very peaceful. Yeah, because you get your hand chopped off. At least you don't get that yet. I mean, you might get 31 months for a nasty tweet, but you ain't get your hand all lopped off just yet. Whereas Isabel thinks, they'll be able to find you because everything will be like the other colleague said earlier on about a social credit score. I just think Isabel shouldn't even be talking in these terms. Things about safety of women and children should be more up her street. Let's just stay away from Tony Blair's bonkers things about ID cards and Nick Clegg before him. You know
what about that argument that if you've got nothing to hide, why would you object to ID cards?
Well, that's the old thing about, opening up your front door to your place. Why have a lock on your front door at all if you've got nothing? Because you can't trust everybody has the same motives as you and I, Mark. That's why.
Yeah. And the only other issue is, obviously, she's looking at the illegal immigration side of it. Wouldn't it be, isn't the argument for ID cards that if the police were to pull someone over and ask for their ID and they didn't have it, well, then they've immediately been presented as an illegal immigrant and then we can get about removing them from the country?
Well, yeah, but they're chucking the passports in the drink as we speak. So, I mean, they're not going to play by our rules, are they?
Yeah, no, that is a fair point. Tarquin, you're on fire tonight. Isabel Wokeshott. Sounds a little harsh, but listen, it's all about opinions. Do call me again soon. There he goes. I tell you what, Tarquin, I want some of what he's had. Grace is in London on Meghan Markle. Grace, what are your thoughts about the Duchess of Sussex? And she's got this forthcoming TV series on Netflix, With Love, Meghan. Will you be watching?
No, I certainly won't, and I don't have Netflix anyway. But I'm really frustrated in general by celebrities, so I'm not just saying this because it's Meghan specifically, but it is Meghan on this occasion, who discourage us from realising how fortunate we are by shoving their wealth in people's faces. Compared to most of humanity, our standards of living as average British people are pretty high. And if we look back, just a couple of generations ago, we've got all kinds of things to be grateful for that previous generations and people elsewhere in the world could only dream of. Even though there's a cost of living crisis and everything, we still have, enough to eat. We've got good choices of food and entertainment. We've got lots to be grateful for. But when there's programming like Meghan's, it means that people are less able to appreciate what we have and to think, I don't have what she's got. We forget that it's nice to have a roof over one's head when you're having people like her shoving their enormous mansions in one's face. And I think it's really unhelpful for celebrities to be showing off, as she is, how rich they are. And it's particularly frustrating when she previously, years ago, was an advocate for a brilliant charity called World Vision, which is doing amazing work, helping people who are literally starving to death, helping children who've got no access to basic healthcare education. I thought when she joined the royal family, at last there'll be someone who's, making noise for these people. And we can make a real impact because pound for pound, our donations make a huge impact for those people. But instead she's ended up saying or showing off, her enormous home with millions of bathrooms.
Most definitely. And that mansion in Montecito and the incredible luxury that they live in is all paid for, all bankrolled by Harry and Meghan, throwing the royal family under the bus, writing books and making TV documentaries about them. That's how they've paid for their life of luxury. Interestingly, Grace, you just mentioned the fact that in relative terms, even the poorest in our society are more prosperous now than at any point in our history, which is a really unfashionable but important and factual point to make. I noticed this headline from the paper today, and it's the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, who said that in Germany, the welfare state is no longer sustainable. He calls for fundamental reassessment of benefits system and insists that he will not be scared away from making necessary reforms. Now, this is the Germans, who are incredibly rich. They've got much less national debt than we do and a bigger economy. I think it's third biggest in the world. And even the Germans are having to tighten their belt. Is a day of reckoning coming for the very concept of the welfare state?
Quite possibly. I mean, I have a whole complicated ideas about this that there probably is not time to go into, but I think as a society we actually need to move towards more intergenerational living, because we do not have enough homes for everyone and so much money is tied up in homes. But if we had more intergenerational living, then some people could spend, say, a whole load of money on housing costs, and also it would reduce loneliness, and loneliness is contributing to ill health as well as to other problems. So I think that in the West for a long time we've had this very individualised way of living, and that is not sustainable as more and more people live longer. And I also think that generations have a lot to learn from each other. I certainly need to learn a lot from the wisdom of older generations, and I think as a Western society, the way we've been going isn't going to be sustainable ongoingly. And I think the solution might be appreciating our fellow human beings and living together in community more than we have done.
And we had intergenerational coexistence in the 50s, the 60s and the 70s. You've got sitcoms like On the Buses with 2 or 3 generations of a family living under one roof. And the sitcoms reflected, you know, the kind of social makeup of the time. And as you say, it would tackle loneliness. It might also fix a few of the issues around social care as well, because you could keep an eye on Granny.
Yeah, absolutely. And things associated with age are exacerbated. Things like dementia, for instance, has been found to be exacerbated by loneliness.
Yeah.
So having people living alone is actually contributing to more suffering in a way. And I think that as human beings, we're always going to slightly disagree with people that we're living with. It's never going to be perfect. But I think that community is better than everyone being separated. And I think, like I say, we've got a lot to learn from each other.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, I wish we had longer. I've learned a lot listening to you, Grace, in London. Thank you for that. Intergenerational living, bring it back. You got mum and dad, you got your grandparents, you got the grandkids, all under one roof. What's not to like? Share the council tax. That's not bad, is it? Next up, more of your calls, and the brilliant Petri Hoskin is in at 10. She'll be telling me what's coming up in the show. See you in 2.
When you look at the system, in one way it boils down to 2 very simple metrics. You've got to reduce the number of people who are coming in to apply for asylum. The inflow has got to be lessened, and the outflow of people being processed and, when they are refused, being returned to their country or another safe country has got to be increased.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should we look again at the Lucy Letby case, or is that conversation offensive to the families of the victims? Sydney is in Pigeon, Michigan in the United States. Hello, Cindy.
You
Mark, you've lost your tie, and I love it.
Oh well, listen, I know I've gone casual. It's a public holiday here in the United Kingdom, so I've gone very Miami Vice. I can't lie.
Miami Vice. Well, I love it. And I wanted to say about Lucy Letby. Now, I'm not saying she is innocent, but I am saying that there have been a lot of documented cases where people have been interrogated into pleading guilty.
Yeah.
And it is possible. And we also don't know how we would act under such duress, pressure, and stress of such a case.
Yeah.
So I think it's mindful, and I personally don't feel it is offensive to take another look at the case. And I know the families will have to go through some things, but it's important also to get the right person.
It most absolutely is, and justice must prevail.
Yes, justice must. It must prevail. And we just don't know, and we also don't know what she was advised either. So it's important to take a.
Have there been any cases like this
look.
in the United States, Cindy, that have parallels with the Lucy Letby case?
Not in cases with babies, but plenty of murder cases. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Where there were actual eyewitnesses. I'll name you one. There was a fighter in the 60s by the name of Reuben Carter, and Bob Dylan also wrote a song about him called The Hurricane. And this was a story about a man who spent about 25 years in prison. He was sentenced to life, and they were going to do him in for life. And what helped bring the case to light was this song called The Hurricane by Bob Dylan. Not Villain. I don't like him, but Dylan, the original Bob Dylan. And that's just one of hundreds. There have been a lot of people who have been actually convicted and sentenced to death who have been exonerated. And with eyewitnesses, okay? With eyewitnesses. So it's imperative. It's imperative to let justice prevail.
Cindy, wise words. Great chat. Thank you for the call. We'll catch up again soon. Last word goes to Michael in Oxford. Michael, I'm very torn about the ID cards, but I'm leaning against, because I will draw to your attention the example of the pandemic and authoritarian government. I think it would be leveraged against us. But what's your view?
My view is that whatever an MP says is good for you, goes for the opposite. If they say it's bad for you, go fill your boots.
That's a brilliant rule of thumb, I've got to say. Is it any particular colour of politicians, or just all of them?
All of them. They're all. Yeah, red, blue. They're all the pink foot reform. Yeah. The wet liberals, the communist Greens. Yeah, they're all the same.
And Michael, what troubles you about ID cards? Why do you think so many of my viewers and listeners are furious at the idea of them?
Well, it's all connected to the WEF. If you look,
World Economic Forum, the globalists.
Yeah. If you look at all the politicians around the world who are connected to that organisation, who all follow the same line. Look at COVID; they all follow the same line.
Build Back
all
Better.
The same thing.
Yeah. What is it? No one's safe until everyone's safe.
Sorry?
Remember that? No one's safe until everyone's safe.
Yeah, and they all said it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's so, it's obvious, but people don't see it.
And you're not persuaded by the argument that it might prevent illegal immigration?
No, the only thing that prevents illegal immigration, as soon as their feet touch the ground, that's sent back to France.
And do you worry that ID cards will come eventually anyway? Do you think it's inevitable, Michael?
Well, if I get an ID card, I'll just colour it up.
Right.
I won't use it. If they'll put me in jail, well, because at the end of the day, they will take everything anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, an argument's been made that we already effectively have ID cards. We've got our driver's licence. We've got the, you know, whatever it is, your self-assessment, you know, your national insurance, all that stuff is already logged on a system. Is there a big difference?
I've got my national insurance number and I've got my fingerprints.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's the only ID they should need.
There you go, Michael. You got the last word, and it was the last word talking to you. Thank you so much for your call, and thank you for good man. Thank you, Michael, and thanks for all of your calls tonight. And it's been a very busy show, lots of texts as well, and an unexpected debate along the way regarding ID cards. And it's a resounding big fat no from the vast majority of you. And I certainly worry about how they could be used against us in years to come. So it's a big fat no from me as well. But look. Nothing's cast in stone. Let's continue that conversation because no doubt the topic will come back again in the future. Many hot topics in the safe hands of Petri Hoskin in just a few minutes' time. Good evening, Petri.
I'm loving the dressed-down bank holiday look.
Well, I mean, I hope it's not, you know, underdressed for the home of common sense.
No, just nice and smart and casual.
Well, I thought so. It's a bank holiday weekend,
It's a bank holiday.
You
not
know,
for us, though.
Not really. No, well, exactly. Well, look, I'm delighted to be here because, you know, there is so much to get through. The news cycle does not take a break.
It really doesn't. And we're going to start with having a bit of a roundup of what's going on in the US because the National Guard in Washington has now been told by Pete Hegseth that they can carry weapons. So they are now to defend themselves, but against American people.
Right.
It's a very interesting moment. We're going to be speaking to Bill Keeler.
Chicago next, potentially.
Chicago next, and